Hello, Mr. Kubiak.
Hello, Mr. Chan.
Not doctor yet.
Not doctor yet, hopefully doctor in the immediate future.
So introduce yourself to the people, man. Tell them what you do. Tell them what you're about.
Oh, God. How much time do we have? Okay, my
Too
name...
much time.
Too much? Oh, all right, fine. My name is Ben Kubiak. And I don't know why I said it like that. Anyway, so my name is Ben Kubiak. I'm a musician of various kinds, which means I am professionally unemployed, in essence.
No,
So-
you're a freelancer.
Yeah, that's right. Freelance. That's what they say. Yeah, that's right. Yes, a freelancer as in will work for anybody who will pay him. So yeah, what am I? I'm mostly probably a pianist. I think you'd say I'm mostly a pianist, and
But you do kind of everything, though.
Yeah, that's
because you're
the
very
thing.
good at everything.
well, you're very kind, but you're a liar. I mean, I'm sort of the phrase that's always come to mind throughout my life has been "jack of all trades, master of none." If you know what I mean? Like,
All right.
well, you know
Maybe
how,
not.
You know how we know.
Sure.
No, you know how we know like people who are musicians, particularly who are like astonishingly good at one thing, right?
Yeah.
And can do fuck all else. You know, that's like singers. You know, who are like incredible singers, and try and get them to do anything else, and then they can't do it. Well, I'm sort of the opposite. I'm relatively
yeah, but that
good
just
at a
makes
lot
you,
of
I
things.
guess, like, what's your distinction between a musician and a singer? Like, a singer's a really, like, specific thing. Like, there are
Yeah.
plenty of great singers, but not that great musicians.
What are you saying, Sid? Well, I mean,
Oh,
singing.
you're a great singer. Maybe not.
Well, I'm a singer. I mean, singers are a special breed, you know. I mean, yeah. So Sid and I know each other. Well, we initially met each other when you were still a babe in
I was
arms.
little,
You were a high school
Very
student.
little boy.
Yeah, I think you would have been year 12 when I first met you. I think. Yeah, because I met you in a production that we don't talk about anymore for
Yeah.
various reasons, but in which you were very... That's going to be very mysterious to the viewers of the podcast, isn't it?
I think some of them will know what we're
Yeah,
talking
some
about.
of them may well know what we're talking about. Yeah, all right. Well, we don't talk about that one anymore, but the year after you were in Les Miserables,
Yes.
again, where you were Jean Valjean.
Did I not meet you at Big Sing?
Did you meet me at Big Sing? I don't know if you did.
When did you come to New Zealand?
I came to New Zealand on New Year's Day in 2012.
Oh, okay.
You might have seen me in the Big Sing, but I don't think I was aware of you in
No.
the Big Sing. I
Maybe it's
wasn't aware
kind of those
much.
weird, like, I know of you kind
Yeah.
of weird things.
Yeah, one of those. Well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of that happens at the Big Sing, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so we met each other when Sid was in high school, and I would be gotten in to help out on the musical side of the musical productions at St Kent's and with choirs and stuff like that. So I got to know Sid there, and then he went off to uni, and at uni I studied voice. So I studied classical voice at university.
Why didn't you do piano?
I didn't do. It was essentially a toss-up, and I decided that singing would involve less work. So
I mean,
yeah, you're not wrong.
guess you're not
you know?
wrong,
Well,
yeah.
that's the thing. You know, being a pianist, if you're going to like be a pianist, it's a kind of lonely existence.
Yeah.
Because pianists these days are incredible technically, and to get to that level of technical sophistication, you have to spend a hell of a lot of
the
time
time alone.
in the room just repeating over and over again. And you know, as much as I love Bach, you play one phrase 20 times, and you're going to be sick to fucking death of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you know, I decided that what really wasn't for me. Whereas as a singer, you sort of can't practice 8 hours a day because your voice will be shot by an hour into the thing. And if I'm being honest, I didn't practice an hour a day either, so you know it doesn't really work. But
neither did I.
yeah, exactly. But still, yeah. So I decided singing was the way to go, and so I studied classical voice at university, and then while I worked out what to do with my life, I did a doctorate.
The classic.
Oh yeah.
Don't know what to do with your
Yeah.
life. You just do a postgraduate degree.
Well, initially I did an honors degree, and then most people do a master's while they work out what to do with their lives. And then I didn't do a master's. I just skipped straight to a doctorate, which I've just about completed.
Yeah.
I think, assuming my revisions and corrections are accepted, I'll be a doctor around the middle of the year, I think.
Do you want to talk about what the PhD is?
Yeah. My
Go on.
PhD is a discussion of the history and aesthetics of rock musical theatre.
And what made you... Now, you've told me kind of half-jokingly why you decided to do that.
What have I told you?
That your parents didn't like musicals, and that's why you wanted to do the
Oh,
PhD.
well, I mean, I'm always motivated to do the things that my parents disapprove of, but no, I mean, well, no, there are a few reasons. No, I mean, there are a few reasons for doing a thesis in this regard. I mean, number one, when you're doing a doctoral thesis, especially in music, you come across the unfortunate fact there's an awful lot of literature that's already been written, and so it's hard to write a lot that's new in the field of musicology, especially if you're going to talk about one of the established composers. Like, if you're trying to talk about Beethoven, well, unless, you are not going to have anything stunningly original to say about Beethoven. It's all been said. And even when you go to music theatre, like, if I always knew I wanted to talk about music theatre, probably, because I'm very, very interested in it. But when you go to music theatre, I would have wanted, ideally, to talk about the works of Stephen Sondheim, may he rest in peace. But again, there's an awful lot that's already been written of the sort that I would want to do. So I just decided I had to go for something where there was literally shit all that had been written about it. And that was rock musicals. And, I like rock. And I must say, I made the decision slightly on a whim, I'll be honest. Because what happened was, I was in my honours year at university, panicking about what the hell I was going to do next. And then one of our lecturers at university, a wonderful teacher named now Professor Nancy November, came to me and said, "Hello, Ben. I have some grant money from the Marsden Foundation, and part of this is to support 2 doctorates. Are you interested in Beethoven-era Viennese string quartet culture?" And I said, "No, not in the slightest, no." And she said, "Okay, well, the directives are a little bit broad, so we can widen this topic a little bit. So do you have anything sort of adjacent to that we might study?" And I said, "How about rock musicals?" And she said, "Brilliant, let's do that."
Apples and oranges.
Yeah, well, I mean, and God bless her, Nancy. I mean, she's been very open to the whole thing, and it's quite good because I have 2 supervisors. So I have Nancy, and I have another supervisor I have is Dr. Gregory Camp, another lecturer at the university. And it's quite good because Gregory and I are both musical theatre nerds in a way that Nancy isn't. But that's very good because Gregory and I will music theatre nerd out and we'll hash things out there. And then it's very good to have Nancy there to go, "Guys, I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. You need to pull this back a little bit, guys. This is not comprehensible." So it's been really good in that way. So yeah, that's why I studied that. So I have a thesis that is 300 pages long, and 100,000 words long on rock musicals, which is, I think it's relatively interesting if you can read the thing.
So I'm going to ask you a question, but in a different perspective. When you tell like your family or friends outside of kind of your close music friends that you're doing a PhD, and they ask you the question, so what are you going to do with that? What do you tell them?
What am I going to do with that? Well, they don't usually
I'm not
ask
asking
that.
you. I'm not asking you what you're going to do with it. I'm asking you what you tell them.
Well, that's not what they usually ask, actually. The question that usually immediately follows, "I'm doing a PhD in the history and aesthetics of rock musical theatre," is, "Oh, you can do that?"
Yeah.
That's usually the question that follows. So they're
yeah.
like, "Really? I thought for PhDs you had to do like real research studying, bacteria or, physics or something like that."
All the quantitative stuff.
Exactly. My research is very much not quantitative.
No.
It's very much qualitative. And so they're surprised to learn that that's the sort of thing you can do. But I mean, when you're doing musicology, unless you're doing something more research-based, like we have a colleague, Chris, our colleague,
Chris.
our colleague.
Shout out, Chris.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Well, Chris has also started a doctorate, and he's researching the very technical aspects of the music theatre voice and how it works. So that's something a bit more quantitative that he's researching. But me, I just, I can do all my research on Spotify. In a sense, I sit down and I listen to these music, and it's all musical analysis, just breaking down what this music is doing and how it does what it does. And the interesting thing about that is that, academia for a long time, this has started to reverse recently. It's had this sort of attitude towards both popular music and music theatre that they're sort of not worth studying. Because they're too, middle-brow or low-brow, whatever. This was the case with popular music, but again, it started to reverse recently. And the same with musicals, and also started to reverse recently. So because rock musicals are rock music and musicals, you can imagine that scholars fucking despise these things. And so there's absolutely nothing about them. So it's been quite nice to go, no, guys, there's
plenty of stuff here.
Have you looked in here? There's good shit in here. It's doing interesting things. It's playing with conventions in interesting ways, and it's well written music. There's a reason people like it. There's also, you have to fight. In academia, there's the anti-populist narratives. You have to fight the notion that anything that's popular must be, debased and dumbed down, and all that stuff. No, popular stuff is sometimes, believe it or not, guys, popular because, and this will be hard to understand, it's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is an interesting thing to Interesting thing to think
there's
about.
one thing that you said. I don't know if you remember, but I've
Probably not.
yeah
I say a lot of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always stuck with me because it was when you said, when I think about how much my research matters, it really doesn't.
No.
And you just said it yourself. These so many people didn't want to talk about rock musicals, and now you're trying to find all of these things that are cool about them.
Yeah.
And also find why people like them. So I guess in the sense of like building the Panmure Bridge, like, you know what I mean?
I'm not
Like,
doing that, no.
No, but
Well, I mean,
in the sense of
yeah.
kind of like the broader how people write music, I guess.
I mean, yes and no. So on the one hand, I'm not going to directly save any lives doing this, On the other hand, I'm a firm believer in the power of music. And I think that the study of music is in and of itself a worthwhile thing to do, even if it isn't a matter of life and death. What would our lives be without music at the end of the day? So you do have to sort of reconcile this when you're doing such research that, no, I'm not curing cancer. But nonetheless, music is important and music has its own place, and it is something that is worth studying, I think. But with that, I'm in an interesting position, though, because academia for me is sort of, it's one of the things that I do, but it's kind of increasingly recently, it's sort of on the periphery of what I do. I do most of my stuff.
You are a very busy kind of professional musician. You teach a lot.
I'm certainly busy, yes.
Yeah.
So it's, and fitting everything together is tricky. But yeah, it's good to have that, because it offers a different perspective on everything, and I'm very glad I did it. And it did indeed give me a lot of time to work out what I wanted to do with my life. I started, most PhDs take minimum 3 years, maximum 4 years, and I'm about to come to 4 years. So yeah, that's a good amount of time to work out what you want to do with yourself.
And so when you started, obviously we're really great friends now, but you wanted this guy, man. You messaged me saying, when I asked you, what do you want to talk about? And you said, we should talk about lives of musicians because they don't, a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about what we do.
Yeah, I just don't know what it's like.
Yeah, but the way we got into music is just on two completely separate ends of the spectrum.
All right, because you're not from this world, really, are you?
No.
Yeah, so how did you get into this kind of music?
If I was to like put it down to it just dumb luck.
Right.
Because my parents don't do any like music things. I did like Indian instruments when I was younger.
Yeah.
But that didn't really go anywhere. I did it for 6 months, 7 months, and then just kind of moved on to the next thing. And then I played hockey for a bit. And then I went to high school, and my mother was like, "I want to put you into singing lessons." And back then, I was like, "I don't want to do singing lessons. So I don't want to hang out with all these girls." I was like, went to high school to play hockey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
And why did your mum do that? Did she think that you could be a good singer?
I couldn't tell you, mate.
Okay.
And
do you think you had showed any promise as a singer back then?
I don't know. I really like music.
Yeah.
I've always loved music.
Right.
And so I was really into like rap.
Oh, yeah.
And so after telling my mum I didn't want to do singing lessons, and then she just told me, "You're doing singing lessons," I was like, "Yeah, righto." And so I went to my first lesson, and I remember, and I don't know if my first singing teacher, Lachlan Craig, if he remembers this.
Lockie was your first teacher?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And I don't know if he remembers me saying this, but I was like, he was like, "Oh, like, what do you sing? Have you done any singing before?" I was like, "No, but I really like to rap." He was like, "Okay."
Lockie went, yes, rap. I too enjoy hip hop. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so the he just kind of did his thing, and he's like, "Oh, you're all right. Come to choir rehearsal." I was like, "I don't want to do choir." He was like, "Yeah, come to choir rehearsal." I was like, "Yeah, righto." And so I went to choir rehearsal, and then just kind of snowballed from there. And then people started saying that was good.
Yeah.
And that
I believe I was one of them.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
You don't really compliment me often.
Oh, do I not? Oh, okay. All right. Maybe I said it to other people. I don't want to give you a big head.
No, fair enough. So I did more choir stuff, and I loved it. And people told me I was good, so I was like, yeah, why not? Love getting all this praise and stuff.
Yeah.
And now I just do it.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned my parents before. So I come from a very musical household.
Yeah.
A very musical house. So my parents were, well, they made a go of it as operatic musicians in their younger lives. My dad a baritone and pianist, and my mother a soprano. And they made a good go of it. And then my dad moved into a financial career instead, and my mum essentially stayed home to raise us while doing a bit of teaching on the side. And so that was that for them. But it was always a lot of music in the house, whether we wanted it to or not. And so I have two siblings. I have an older brother and a younger sister. And it's interesting that the different ways that we've taken to music. Because like my dad, I've often thought that my dad had children so that he could have a string quartet. Because he quite specifically had three of them, and he gave my sister a violin to play, and me a viola, and my brother a cello. Go figure. I wonder what his motivations could have been. And so we had a family string quartet, and they tried to market us as a kind of Von Trapp family, around Redbridge in England. I was raised in England, by the way. So very, very musical household, and I have always liked playing the piano. We always had a piano in the house. I have always liked playing the piano a bit too much, because I play the thing endlessly for long hours of the day, extremely loud, which delighted our neighbors, as you can imagine. But yeah, I always really liked playing the thing. I hated playing the viola, absolutely despised playing the viola. I don't know why. There's something not very, not tactile enough about it. I don't know. And we went to church, and so I sang in church choirs. I was initially not a very good singer at all. And then I discovered the works of Gilbert and Sullivan, who you probably know who they are.
Yeah.
They're
just by the way,
yeah.
I didn't know anything about Gilbert and Sullivan until Ben told me. Because remember, I was doing that piece at opera school.
Yeah, Take a Pair of Sparkling Eyes.
Yeah. And I was like, Ben, I don't know what any of this
means. And I was like, well, let me tell you. So, this is from an opera called The Gondoliers. This is sung by Marco in Act 2 as he is singing of Giulietta and etc. All that stuff. Yeah, Gilbert and Sullivan were a sort of operetta writing duo. Gilbert wrote lyrics, Sullivan wrote music, who wrote comedic operettas in England in the late 1800s that are very big in England still and not very big here at all. But yeah, they're very funny. Well, I thought they were very funny. And they have really good music to them, actually. It's really good, catchy music. So I would just get the scores of these things, and I would play them over and over and over again. I remember my mother coming into the music room at one point and going, "Man, can you please stop playing bloody Gilbert and Sullivan? Jesus Christ, we have other books. Just play them." But I've always had this very, obsessive personality where I obsess over these things. And, my brother and sister didn't really have this. It was always very clear that my sister wasn't terribly interested in the whole music thing. Or at least she has different musical interests. I believe she's a fan of a band named Rammstein from Germany, who are a German death metal band.
Gotcha.
So
as on the other end.
And I'll tell you, not a lot of German death metal going around in the Kubiak household when I was young. Not a lot, no. In fact, I'd say none.
No string quartet arrangements.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So this is the thing about my parents, very musically traditional. Mm-hmm. It was if there was jazz playing in our house, it was because we were in a bit of a kinky mood. Like ooh, we're going to get frisky.
Yeah,
going to go crazy. We're going to play jazz. Duke Ellington. Wow.
Yeah.
But other than that, very, very musically traditional. And I love opera. I love opera as well. But it was clear that my musical tastes were going to diverge. Like I would go to the library. For our younger listeners, libraries are places where books are stored. For our younger listeners, books are things that they're like iPads but with pages. So anyway, I would go to the library and I would just pick books off the shelves. And so the Gilbert and Sullivan were kept in a certain section. And then I noticed musicals. There were scores of musicals there. And I'd always been told, musicals are just silly little things. The trivial plots are just funny. They're not, and the music's very basic and boring. It's nothing for you. And I picked a musical off the shelf because I recognized its name, called West Side Story. And there's a film of it playing right now. Go see it in cinemas now. And I took it off the shelf and I opened it up and I discovered, well, this is not what I was expecting. It was like dark and interesting, and people were killing each other and stuff. It was really weird, and big love songs, and gang violence and factional disputes, and also the music looked interesting as well. Like I opened the score and I saw a song called G Officer Krupke, and I saw it started with a tritone in the voice line. This is what I look for, a 14-year-old looking in library books.
Do you want to explain to the listeners that don't know anything about music what a tritone is?
Yeah, sure. A tritone is this, da da. So I would look in the music, and a tritone is a weird interval that's like one semitone short of a fifth. So a fifth is a really, really stable harmonic interval, da da, and a tritone is one semitone short of that, da da. And it's
super dissonant.
Yeah, super dissonant, super unstable, and it's at the start of the song. Dear kindly Sergeant Krupke, you gotta understand. And then I looked, and there was another one at this song, Maria, and I thought, wow, this music is interesting. What's going on? Why have I not heard about these musicals that are going on here? So I started to look into more and more of them, and my parents complained more and more, and I said, shut up, I like it. And then I was playing the piano in my local kindergarten as a little job when I was a teenager. And one of these little 3-year-old kids got up and sang a song, and this little 3-year-old kid singing, I know a song. So the teacher goes, okay, sing your song, little Susie, whatever. Okay. California girls, we're unbelievable. They see you bikinis on top. And I go, wow, what is that song? I don't know what that song is. You must remember, this is like 12 years ago or something like that. It was very new. So I went back and I went on YouTube and I discovered this song by this Katy Perry. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting music, isn't it? And then I went on to Lady Gaga. And then I would surreptitiously borrow my brother's iPod, because on it he had stuff like Queen and ABBA and interesting stuff like that. And I heard this music as well, and I thought, well, this is cool music. All this music is cool. Why have I not been hearing all this cool music? I like Verdi as much as the next person, but this Mercury chap's got something about him. So I got very, very interested in all these different kinds of music, but I didn't think that I was ever going to do music as a career, because, well, weirdly, my parents were never very encouraging of it. They encouraged us all to get into music. A lot, of course, but that having made a go of it as a career themselves and gone into other things subsequently, they knew how hard it was, and that's not something. And I understand that it's not necessarily something that you would voluntarily push your child into as a parent. And so I thought that I was going, because I was quite, I was quite book smart as well. So good at maths and English and these sorts of things. Although I found that lots of musicians are good at maths.
I'm terrible at maths.
Singers not so much.
Yeah.
But other singers are an individual breed of musician. They get into it for different reasons than the rest, I think.
For sure.
You'll find that there are musical stereotypes. Singers are away with the fairies in their own little world.
Absolutely.
Pianists and string players are very driven, very focused, very conscious of what they're doing. And brass players are constantly hammered. This is basically the stereotypes of musicians.
I would say that the closest personality types are brass players and singers, and string players and pianists.
Relatively close. Brass players are far more gregarious and outgoing. Singers can often be quite shy, actually. And singing is sort of where they get an outlet to, provide some structure for them to.
Somebody was telling me this one thing, that a lot of singers, when they speak, and I guess you would kind of expect singers to be really great at speaking because they, sing and then in front of the public. And using their voices, but a lot of singers have a stammer when they speak.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, the actual singing gives them the confidence to...
Yeah, it's that way a lot of the time. Brass musicians do not give a fuck. Brass musicians are just going to get hammered, and you'll find them in the streets of Dunedin at 3 a.m. vomiting profusely and living their best life. You know?
Oh, I know plenty of singers are doing that stuff as well, mate.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Where was I? Oh, yeah, so I didn't think I was going to be a musician. I thought I was going to be... when I was like 14 or something, my father sat me down with the Economist Book of Professions, and we went through it, and we decided that I was going to be an actuary. An actuary is, I believe, a sort of a risk analyst calculator for businesses. As thrilling as it sounds, I'm grateful that I didn't end up going into it. So then, this was in England, and then I came to New Zealand, And I was homeschooled in England, to which most people say explains a lot. And then I came to England, to New Zealand, and I did 2 years of high school. I did year 12 and 13 in New Zealand at Maclean's College in Auckland. And at Maclean's College, there was I did music as a subject, and my teacher was a man named Nigel Weeks. Who Nigel is a fascinating character. Nigel's still around. He went down to the South Island. And music lessons with Nigel would essentially be Nigel would come in for 10 minutes in your hour-long music class, go around everybody, tell each of them why their individual contributions were shit, and then storm off in a hurry. And I loved the man dearly. I loved the man absolutely dearly because he had a vibrant passion for music in all its kinds. And he was totally lacking in pretentiousness of any kind. He would listen to and play absolutely anything. And it was a wonderful thing to me. And we got along quite well, you know. Like we would go to my parents would go to parent-teacher evenings diligently and ask every teacher what horrible things I was doing. And, you know, my English teacher would say, oh, he's quite good, but he needs to focus more in class. And my maths teacher would go, oh, he's quite good, but he's lazy and doesn't do the homework. And Nigel would say, no, he's great. Go away.
Yeah.
You know? So I like Nigel a lot. And he was quite an inspiring presence. And I arrived in New Zealand, and I, you know, made myself known in the music department. And Nigel decided, week 2 in New Zealand, right, you're performing at Assembly. I said, oh, am I now? And Maclean's College is quite a large school, if you're not aware. It's 2,500 students, and plus several hundred staff, and they're all at Assembly. And it's a Friday morning, like 8 in the morning. Nobody wants to be there, let alone listen to a musical performance. It's the dream gig.
For some rando from England.
Exactly, yeah. So he said, right, you're performing at Assembly. I said, oh, okay, all right, fine. So I sang Luck Be a Lady Tonight from Guys and Dolls. And for the next, like, few months, I couldn't turn a corner or in Maclean's College without somebody going, oh, luck be a lady tonight at me in my face, you know. It's sort of, and it was an interesting experience. And from that, in my time in school, as you did, I sort of got the vibe that, yeah, I'm quite good at this in some ways, you know, quite good at this.
But I'm sure you would have known, because you were doing it growing up, that you had
hard to get a sense for this sort of thing, especially when you're homeschooled. Very difficult to get a sense for this thing. You don't really have a barometer against which, because my barometer is like my dad, who is, you know, just quite good at everything, a bit like me. So, you know, it's hard to evaluate yourself against that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but Nigel was very keen to, at Maclean's College, it wasn't just you learn music as a subject, also very vibrant co-curricular musical scene. And so if you are a pianist, it's quite regular that you get into the music department and Nigel says, Ben, one of my students needs an accompanist in 5 minutes. Can you please sight read this for their assessment? And I said, oh, okay, fine. Happens on a fairly regular basis. Ben, there's a choir rehearsal tonight. You're there. You're going to play and you're going to sing as well. Oh, okay, Nigel. All right, fine. I remember once when we were going to do Les Miserables. He hadn't told anyone. He just decided they were going to do Les Miserables. And he just wandered into class, walked up to me one day, and he walked up and he said, Javert. And just walked off.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I looked it up. Oh. Okay, I guess I'm playing Javert. Right,
so did you know, I'm going to assume you knew what Les Mis was.
I knew what it was. I'd never actually listened to it.
Can I tell you, so when we did Les Mis in my year 13, I didn't know anything about, at that point, my knowledge of music, because I only started it in high school, was just so limited. And in year 12, when we did the production We Don't Speak About, my role was very small.
Oh, it's a good role, and you were very good at it.
Great role, but I really wanted to be the bigger role, the bigger tenor role. And so I asked...
that role wouldn't have been right for you. It's not really a tenor role, apart from anything.
No, yeah. But I asked the head of music at the time, Ross, I asked him, sir, is there a tenor part in this production, like a big one that I can sing? He was like, you're an idiot. It is like the tenor role.
Yes. The role is Jean Valjean, for anybody wondering. He's the lead role in Les Miserables. And it is a famously very, very high tenor role. It was written for an Irish tenor by the name of Colm Wilkinson, who had this fabulous voice, and it was a strange voice. He would go into like a falsetto mix when he was up high, which enabled him to go incredibly high, and on a microphone it sounded very, very powerful. I'm sure up close it was probably relatively quiet, actually, but it enabled him to reach these incredible stratospheric notes, and he could do it for a whole evening. And so these days they have to get just the best tenors in to do it because it's such a demanding role. I, on the other hand, played Javert, who can be played by any bass baritone, even Russell Crowe. Although I remember, you know how you get people give you things that they think are compliments when you're a musician, but are not necessarily compliments. Like after one Les Miserables show, this old lady walked up to me in the foyer and said, "Oh Ben, oh my God, you sounded so good." I'm like, "Oh, thank you very much." He said, "Yeah, so good. You sounded just like Russell Crowe." Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's just what I was going for. Yeah, cool.
Oh, yeah.
So being at Maclean's like that, you know, Nigel always said to me, "No, you have to be a musician. Come on, Ben, you have to be a musician." I'm like, "Oh, but I don't need to make money and stuff. I need to have a career." "You can have a career. It will be music, Ben. Come on." And I was just really getting to love music so much, and it just came to the point where it just seemed natural that, all right, I guess I'll try this music thing then. And what especially concerned my parents was not that I was going to study music at university, but also that I didn't have a backup. I quite consciously didn't have a backup. They were assuming even if I did study music, I would study as some sort of conjoint. Which, by the way, anybody listening, this is correct. You should have a backup, you know.
I wholeheartedly disagree.
You disagree,
Don't
really?
forget, I started doing law.
You did, yes.
Yes, and I hated it.
Right.
Every ounce of me hated it. I didn't like what I was
Yes,
doing.
but
All I wanted to do was sing songs. I think there are ways that you can go about the money thing that don't necessarily... Yes, you should have backups for the money thing that aren't necessarily another career. But you shouldn't force yourself to do something that you hate. Otherwise, you're just going to want to kill yourself.
But here's my thing, Sid. For every person like you who started out in a conjoint and dropped the conjoint to go with music, there are a lot of people who started out with a conjoint and dropped the music because they realized that it wasn't going to be for them, quite rightly so, and went into the conjoint and do very well in whatever line of work that goes into.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily need to start with the conjoint. Like, the law school or the engineering school is going to be there regardless of if you do music or not.
True,
you know what I mean?
True, but all I'll say, if you're going to try and do this for a profession, you need to be prepared for the fairly likely eventuality that it doesn't work out as well as you think it's going to. Because it's not a vocation that is plentiful in the opportunities offered necessarily. As other fields are. So looking back now, so at the time I was utterly confident that I had no need of a backup because I thought, this is going to go fine, going to be great, going to be great. Looking back, I don't know, based on the available evidence that I have at the time, why I was so confident in that.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was all right by Maclean's college standards, but all right by Maclean's college standards is very different from, can make a career out of this thing. So, as it happens, it's worked out. But if it hadn't worked out, which it very well could not have, I don't really know what I would have done. So,
I mean, I'm not a big kind of woo-woo guy in terms of fate and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think just some things are weird. You know what I mean? Like, it's not
some things are weird. Sid Chan, 2020.
Yeah, like it's not. Your parents didn't necessarily want you to go into a musical career, even though you were born into a musical thing. And by chance, you moved to New Zealand, and by chance, you went to Maclean's College, and you met Nigel. And for me, my Nigel was Lockie and Gracie, and without them, I would not be where I am. So you meet these people along the line just by pure luck that motivate you and give you inspiration, I guess, to continue with this thing. Yeah. And I guess when you're younger, you don't really look at it. You're just like, oh, well, yeah, right, I'll go. Just you kind of keep trucking along. Yeah. Then once you get a little bit older, and you're a little bit older than me, but
just a little bit.
You just kind of look
just a little
bit.
I'm young, everybody.
Not that bad. And then you kind of look back and you're like, oh, yeah, wow, this is crazy how I'm here. Especially for my, there are no Indians doing this business. Yeah. Western classical music, let alone just the opera thing. Yeah. So it's definitely crazy how I've made it this far. But it's working out, so
Yeah,
we'll keep going.
that's the thing. It is working out, but I mean, even then, I've had a strange route to where I am. I mean, I started realizing that I was relatively good at singing while I was still in England, and up until that time, I'd solidly been a pianist all along the road, and then it started to come good with the singing thing. And I remember I went to my piano teacher because I was doing this. I was entering these music competitions, and I was going to. They had a self-accompanied class where you can sing and accompany yourself on an instrument at the same time. And, I'm competing there against people doing, Elton John and, Joni Mitchell and stuff. And there I am with Schubert, Steve Farrell at the time playing, So I brought it to my piano teacher to check it because it's a relatively tricky piano accompaniment. And so I took it to my piano teacher and I said, oh, should I sing at the same time? And he said, yeah, you may as well. So I played and sang it at the same time. And I really remember he said, yeah, good. The singing's better than the playing, honestly. I thought, oh, geez, well, can you make the playing better then, please? So I've never, for a long time, I've never quite known whether I am a pianist or a singer, and I've eventually realized that maybe I don't need to choose, actually.
No.
Maybe I can just sort of be all of the above, because it's sort of what I've wound up being now.
Do you find that that's been helpful for you in your professional career?
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Hell yes, absolutely. Because, as a pianist, there are two kinds of pianists. There's a concert pianist, what we call, who is somebody who is the soloist, who is playing the piano concerto. And then there are the kind of pianist who has many names. In what I do, it's usually called a répétiteur, who is a pianist who is essentially an accompanist of sorts, who is not playing the solo part of the Beethoven piano concerto, but is probably playing the entire orchestral reduction of the Beethoven piano concerto. That's more what I do, and for that, having been a singer, good God, it's useful. It's incredibly useful because I spent a lot of my life accompanying singers, and so it helps to have been a singer because you have an understanding for they're probably going to breathe here. Okay, they're probably going to need some space here. There's a very long high note. They're probably going to want me to rest through this accompaniment underneath here.
Yeah.
Okay, it gives you, and it gives you almost, and sometimes I don't even have to think about it. I just have an innate sense of, okay, this needs to move and stretch and flex like this in this certain way to accompany them right. And I wouldn't have that at all if I hadn't been a singer. If I weren't still, I speak like the Ben Kubiak, the singer, is dead. He's not, but I just.
But you have been doing a lot more repetitoring
I've been doing a lot more playing the piano. Yeah, sort of the. Adam Smith, the market decides, as it were. The market has decided to employ me constantly as a pianist, and I'm not one to argue. So.
Yeah, I mean, you still do a lot of this. Yeah, Ben, just jump in the chorus, mate.
Yeah, yeah, and that's fun. That's a lot of fun. But yeah, a lot more piano playing these days, certainly. And I'm not going to complain about that. But yeah, it is it's an odd existence as a musician, the one that I have.
And so, where has COVID fit in this for you?
Well,
both the piano playing and the singing thing, and also we talked about it a little bit a while back, but explain to the people what that's meant for you, just in terms of the repetitouring as well as music direction and singing.
Well, I mean, I feel bad for saying this, but because I know it's been hard on a lot of people, but COVID's been relatively good for me. And a part of that is I live in New Zealand, where we've had a lot better go of this thing in general. It started to fall apart a little bit recently, but before then it's going pretty well. So honestly, for a lot of the COVID period, I've been fine because life has been relatively normal. It's only in the second half of this year that it's really affected things drastically, where gigs got cancelled and so on. But even then, it was kind of nice to have the break because I was rapidly veering towards burnout with the pace that I'd taken my year up until that point. So, it honestly hasn't been that bad. With that being said, it's been horrific for musicians overseas because it's hit their line of work particularly badly. But again, the nice part of that for me is that a lot of them came back to New Zealand. And so for a while, there were a lot of these great gigs, concerts, productions, and so on, who were starring all of these great Kiwi singers who had been overseas, earning their profession for many years, and have come back to New Zealand. So they're now, well, we're here, we may as well sing. And so we've been using them in our productions. So getting to play for all those singers has been rather nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, hadn't affected things super much. And at the start of the COVID period, well, I guess it wasn't at the start. It was a little bit into the COVID period. I got accepted into the artist development program at New Zealand Opera, and so that took that provided something very nice and stable for me to do for a while. So yeah, the COVID period has been pretty good to me, honestly.
That's good, man.
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Obviously not for everyone, and I guess this kind of comes into my next question, which is kind of here.
He's got questions.
I do.
You're like prepared
I know. I made
this.
notes and
I
everything.
thought we were just going to come in and we were just going to shoot the shit for a little bit. He's got full-on notes.
Well, you're an interesting guy, and when we do talk in the group chat or in person when we're playing Super Smash, we never talk about this kind of stuff, and I think it is important.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
So... Oh, God, what were we just talking about? I've just completely forgotten.
We were talking about COVID.
That's right.
And New Zealand Opera and repetitoring stuff and all that stuff.
So, even though you found that you've found something fulfilling in the Young Artist program at New Zealand Opera, I think a lot of people, our age or that are around you a lot, look at you as kind of like a genius savant kind of thing.
What am I supposed to say to that?
Nothing. Let's keep listening.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And
it's all
whenever
true, yes.
whenever you touch the piano, it just kind of happens.
Ah.
So, my question is like, what do you find fulfilling emotionally about music, or do you just kind of like do it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I don't see that the two are necessarily in opposition, though. I mean, well, it's on a few levels. I mean, it's hard for me to say. The whole genius thing is annoying.
Yeah.
Because you're not wrong. It gets thrown around a lot, and I don't particularly like it. Apart from anything, it's dangerous for you as a person, because if you let it get to your head a bit too much, then you start, getting high on your own supply.
Do you feel like you've ever gotten that?
Probably.
Yeah.
So, yeah, probably. And it's something that you've really got to avoid, especially because so-called geniuses out there in the world tend to be very nasty people, actually, in real life. And it's best to try and avoid that. So, I mean, to the extent that it sort of just happens, well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I'm always trying to push myself, because I know that I have abilities as a musician, and that's all very well, but like I said, I've always had very, very diverse interests in music, and so I'm always trying to push myself to learn to adapt my skill set to different areas of music, So, like, I was raised entirely on classical singing and on classical piano. I'm now a very good music theatre piano player. That did not come naturally, because I was raised on opera, and that's something very different. And even still to this day, I have to focus quite hard when doing it, because it's so very rhythmic in terms of the style of the thing, and I have to not let that waver. My main weakness as a musician is rhythm. I don't have a very good sense of rhythm. I tend to rush through things because I just get impatient and overexcited and stuff. And in music, you can't really do that. So, yeah, to a certain degree, but also there is, as I get what you're saying, there is a certain degree to which other people, I feel, have to make an intermediate step between thinking of what they want to play and then actually play it. They have to make the intermediate step of thinking, how do I translate this into this? And to a certain extent, it's become naturalized to me where I don't have to do that. To a certain degree, yes. I can just, so like you've seen it, I'll sit down at the piano and just start playing stuff. And I can essentially just play whatever pops into my head. Did I when?
That thing you've just said of, you have that extra step. Did you used to have that?
Probably, yeah, to a certain degree, yeah. But I've just done it so much throughout my life that it's been naturally subsumed into my thinking processes, such that I don't really need to think about it. I mean, if called upon, and I do this quite a lot, I'll just sit down at the piano and I'll just play, and I'll often not really be very conscious of what I'm playing, even. I won't, sometimes I think I would like to play this, but I can also shut that off entirely and just say to my fingers, okay, do whatever you like, and they'll do something and I'm barely aware of it, And that's just because, and that's what people sort of mistake for the genius thing. It's really not. It's really not that. It's just that the muscle memory has become so naturally ingrained from doing this so many times that I can just say to my fingers, do what you know, and they will do what they know without, me having to really think about it. So yeah, there is a certain degree.
Did you have any kind of, I like to call them light bulb moments, right? And for me, it was when we went to Auckland Youth Choir, went to Carnegie Hall and sung for Paul Miller, and then coming back and doing Les Mis. So these little things that have, happened in my life, and did you have anything that happened to you musically where you kind of switched and you're like, yeah, this is absolutely what I want to do? Or did it just kind of just happen organically and now you're here? Because there was, for me, a conscious kind of thing like, yes, absolutely, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I can't say that there anything really comes. I mean, I do remember pulling West Side Story off the shelf, like I say.
Yeah.
I do distinctly remember that and going, "What the fuck is this?" And it really made an impact. But beyond that, music has always just been so naturally ingrained into my life, and there was never a conscious moment of choice of, okay, I'm going to do this. It just sort of all naturally proceeded in that direction, such that when the choice happened, it didn't feel like a choice. It felt like I had no choice. The other thing about it was that going to high school and
that's interesting that you say that.
Yeah, going to high school and doing music. The other thing was that at high school there are people. This is something with which I was unfamiliar, having been homeschooled. What, people? And you can talk to them? Wow, incredible. And so, but also I found and continue to find most people irritating. But music people, they're different. You know what I mean? Music people are different. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it.
No, neither can I.
But there is something different about people who are musicians versus people who are not. And that's not to say they're any better or worse than any other person.
It is
they
absolutely
are just
different.
And I find them very easy to be around. I find most people quite difficult to be around, honestly.
I guess I'm on the opposite end of that kind of spectrum. Like I have this is going to sound really worse than what I'm meaning it to, but I've got kind of friends everywhere. I've got friends that I work with.
He's so popular, everyone.
So
you should see him.
Unbelievably
He's just
popular.
beating off people left, right, and centre.
I've got like work friends. I have my music friends.
Yeah.
And I have my like jiu-jitsu friends and people I go to the gym with and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
I've got music friends and sod all else. That's all I've got. Yeah.
But I think for me, it's quite nice to break off from the music people just for a little bit, kind of go and do these other things. It just for me, it just lets me decompress my brain a little bit.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just music people, because also I've done, in my work in the music theatre sphere, I've also come across a lot of actors. And many of them had no musical ability whatsoever, but they're exactly the same. I think it's a certain, to be, I think it's just artistic types. To be an artistic type, you have to have a certain level of empathy, I think is what it is, or a certain level of emotional awareness and emotional openness that I find that I don't find in other people, and without that, I struggle to know what to talk about with people. It's not that I don't like being around people who aren't musicians. I just don't know what to say to them, because I just don't know how to relate to relate to you. It's. I don't want to come across as elitist or whatever, but it's just. But
it is different, and especially for singers, when we do perform, and when you start performing more regularly, you have your, or at least I find, you have your emotions on the kind of skim all the time. Yeah,
you have to.
Of course.
Yeah, same with actors.
Yeah, that's so hard to navigate, and I think some people, I guess, do you think pianists have to have it too, the way you...
I mean, the piano is, well, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot of pianists, because they're not, but I know a lot of pianists of my sort, we sometimes call them collaborative pianists.
Yes.
There's this weird thing in, this may be controversial, but there's this weird movement amongst accompanists. This is what I generally are called, to not be called accompanists, because people think it's demeaning. I've never understood this. It's not demeaning, it's just what we do. We accompany. We do accompany. If you put us by ourselves, we are shit. We are not engaging enough. We the singers need us, and we need the singers, and we are complete together. So we are accompanists. But there's this sense that people want us to be called collaborative pianists, which is just too much of a mouthful for me. I'm fine with being an accompanist.
I just like singing songs.
Yeah, exactly. And I just like playing songs. That's the other nice thing about being an accompanist. The pressure isn't necessarily all on you. So you can just sort of sit back and relax and listen to the singer and go, God, they're a good singer, aren't they? I've had that experience quite a lot, of just being there thinking, I'm lucky to be here. I have the best seat in the house to whoever this person may be who is singing right now.
That was the one thing about COVID that I absolutely hated about singing. And we can talk about this a little bit more if you'd like. but those accompanist tracks. And would you like to tell the people?
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
sure you would have had to do a lot of them over the last couple of years.
Oh, boy, yes.
Yeah.
So in COVID, so in those periods where we have been locked down, people have had to still do singing, whether for assessments or for online performances and so on. But the thing is, they haven't been able to physically be in the same room as an accompanist because of lockdown regulations, we're not allowed to mix bubbles. And so us accompanists have had to make accompaniment tracks where we pre-record the accompaniment to a song. And then we send it off to the singer, and the singer sings along to it. Well, it sounds like it should be fine, right? But the problem is, when I'm accompanying, I am reacting every step of the way to everything that the singer that I am accompanying is doing. And when the singer isn't there, I can't do that, so I just sort of have to guess what the singer might do at any given point, give it to the singer, and then the singer just has to live with whatever musical decisions I made, because it's not changeable, which is not an ideal solution by any means.
At all.
Especially in classical singing, where the rhythm is so often flexible, and the things, flex and move throughout a piece. There may be long pauses, ritenutos, accelerandos throughout, that there's a thing that happens.
But also, what's optimal for the singer at that point in their vocal development as well.
Yeah.
They might go through certain passages a little bit faster, slow down, and if you don't have that, and the accompanist or collaborative pianist just kind of guesses, it becomes very, very challenging.
Yeah, and there's a thing that happens at the end of a lot of classical arias called a cadenza, where the music comes to a stop, and then the accompaniment cuts out, and then the singer sings some florid extended passage, ah, si non capace, non son capace, and then the pianist at the very end goes, bah, to finish things off. Now, if you're not there in the room with it, usually easy. You just wait for the singer to finish, and then you go, bam, and everybody applauds. How are you going to wait for the singer to finish when they're not there? It's
do
impossible.
this grand hand gesture.
Oh, that's the thing, because these had to be done as videos as well.
Yeah.
So I was just moving every step of the way, going 1, 2, 3, 4, and it was not an ideal situation.
No.
But I have to say it's worse for the singers than for the pianists, because at least we just in the position where we just have to guess, fine. But then the singer has to live with whatever decisions we made, and you can't really record the accompaniment track afterwards because the singer needs the pitch and they need the rhythm and so on for everything like that. So the accompaniment track has to come first. So in many ways, it's harder for the singer than it is for the pianist. Not ideal, but we've learned to live with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how. I was really lucky this last semester because I didn't have any assessments or anything.
That is lucky. How did you work that?
No, because I'm doing the masters.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So I see all of these, students that have the assessments doing recordings after recordings after recordings, which can't be healthy for your voice.
No, not at all.
No. And then also your motivation after doing that. I know some people, and myself included, because I did a lot of practice and had coachings and stuff as well. And the motivation after you finish a semester like that is just, you just don't want to sing anymore. You just want to put it to the side. Yeah. Which I think is healthy as well. But, coming back into a new year, and we have, now that we're opened up again, everything's, we have concerts and
I gave a lecture this morning. I was in the same room as 40 other people.
It's weird, eh?
I know. Very odd experience, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, now that we have music to learn and things like that, and now it's just getting back into it after how long were we in lockdown? Three months or so?
It was a long time. Was it only 3 months? It felt longer than that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just lost count after a month and a half. I was like, what's the point? But now that we're back, it's kind of, I guess, some semblance of normal.
Yeah. So, can I ask you a question? Is that allowed on Sidscussions?
Of course, mate.
Or are we in a benevolent dictatorship?
Please.
Right. Okay. So, because you're the opposite of me, as we've said, I do a lot of many different things. And I think we should talk a bit more about that. But you, by contrast, you're a singer.
Yes.
And that's what you do. You're a singer. One lane. How does that feel? Because for me, I would be very uncomfortable. Because
how do you mean?
Well, because part of being in my line of work is in some ways terrifying because I rely on having 13 different revenue streams in order to get along, and they all rely on different aspects of my skill set. Whereas you got singing, and I know you work at JB as well and stuff like that, but from a musical perspective, you've got singing. How does that feel?
From a musical perspective or a professional perspective?
Both.
From a musical perspective, I guess I'm just super happy that I'm here, really, because I know so many people that would love to be in my position that aren't.
Yeah.
And for that, I feel very, very grateful. I'm very grateful that I have parents that have come from another country into New Zealand and are supportive that I'm doing a profession that nobody else
Yeah.
in my culture is doing.
Yeah.
Let alone Fijian Indian. And so now that I've gotten a bit older, I feel a kind of sense of responsibility with that, and that kind of motivates me as well. And also, there's just something about, how do I phrase this? One of my teachers, I've said his name, Lockie, he said, because he's a singer as well as a conductor as well.
Yeah.
But he told me when I was in high school that what he loves about conducting is that's how he feels like he says something.
Ah, right, yeah.
And he doesn't necessarily have that with singing.
Yeah.
And I've done composition, I've done conducting, as well as singing as well. And singing is the way that I feel like I say something. Whether I'm like upset about something, happy about something, the way that I express that, or I feel like I'm most fulfilled by that is through singing.
Interesting. Because I don't feel any more that I say. I feel that feeling of saying something a lot as well. But I don't feel it in any more in any one of my things that I do than any others, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. Should we go through the things that I do?
Yes.
So I think the main thing that I do is playing the piano, like I say. As a repetitor, this is a word that most people probably aren't familiar with. Repetitor, it's in general a term that applies to the operatic world. So I am a pianist who plays in rehearsals for operatic productions. The term gets used in music theatre as well. So what I'm playing is not something that was written for the piano, for one. It was written as an orchestral part, and then it's been reduced by arrangers down to a piano part. Now, with that being said, that reduction isn't always reliable. And so as a repetitor, you also have to have a knowledge of the orchestra, so you know what you're trying to sound like, and also so you can fill in bits that are missing as necessary, and so on. Additionally, your job is not just to play the notes. Your job is to help out the singers and the conductor and everybody else there in whatever way necessary. So it may be that at any given point you'll be playing Verdi or something, and the conductor will say, "Can you please sing in Benoit?" And you have to sing the role of Benoit as well while you're playing as well. This is relatively common, so you have to be able to sing a bit, you have to have knowledge of languages, and also you have to have, like, the conductor might say, "Can you play Musetta's line as well in the right hand," or whatever. And you have to be able to reduce that down as well. So these are things that a concert pianist probably couldn't do. So when I can make the comparison between concert pianists and repetiteurs, concert pianists are probably on a technical level superior to repetiteurs, yes, but we can do things that they can't do as well, because they never have to do this. All they ever have to do is play the notes on the page. And if they can do that, that's their job done. We have a far more multifaceted job that we have to do, and it's very different. And it's also a job that nobody ever really teaches you how to do.
No, I guess it's one of those ones where you can only learn when you're in the situation.
Right. Exactly right. And so this is, for example, why I was very lucky to have Nigel at high school, because occasionally Nigel would just, in Les Mis rehearsals where I was supposedly playing a role, I would be like, "Ben, go play the piano." So yeah, I had to play the piano for the ABC Cafe or something, and especially in high school, the singers need a lot of helping out, with the notes and stuff. So you learn to put in the notes and stuff like that, and so on. And when I'm sitting at home playing my Gilbert and Sullivan, well, I want to sing along as well because I know how the tunes go. So you learn to sing and play at the same time, and so on. So you sort of develop these skill sets, but nobody ever really teaches them to you, and so there's a lot of it that you have to learn on the job. This is why these artistic development programs, like New Zealand Opera has, are so great. So I was accepted as a repetiteur last year, and I was the first repetiteur they'd taken. I wasn't aware of this at the time. I think in something like 15 years or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in theory, the program.
I knew it had been a while.
Long time. So it's open to repetiteurs and singers. In practice, it's been all singers for ages, which makes sense. I mean, an opera program should support opera singers. The last one before me was David Kelly.
Really?
Yeah, David was the last one before. Actually, David and Catherine Norton were in the same year. And they were the last ones who were repetiteurs in the program, yeah. And because to get this diverse skill set, it doesn't happen a lot. Because, like I say, it's not taught. So, you just have to be the sort of person for whom it just sort of happened for you, and you happen to have all these skills, and as it happened, it happened for me. And, it's a particular sort of person who gets that. Like, David. Do you know David Kelly very well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so David Kelly, for those who don't know, is sort of the head honcho in Auckland of the operatic pianists. He plays a lot for New Zealand. If I'm not playing for something at New Zealand Opera, then 99% David Kelly is playing for it, basically. And rightly so. He's a fantastically talented person. He has such an innate sense for how to play the orchestra, because he just loves this stuff. He lives and breathes operatic music. But he's also a linguist. I mean, his partner is Italian, and also he just knows all these languages because he has a voracious appetite for this sort of thing. And he knows opera inside and out like the back of his hand because he lives and breathes it. And so he naturally had all these things that motivated him to get these skill sets just as a natural consequence of everything. And so that's the sort of person that results from that. And that's the sort of person that I aspire to be. But David, I'll catch him during breaks in rehearsal, and he's on his little tablet reading some philosophy or something. I'm like, oh, David.
There are definitely some
Read a comic
smarty
book,
pants. There are definitely some smarty pants. And I didn't know David before last year's opera school.
Yeah.
And this actually, since you brought up David and his kind of innate love of music and linguistics and that kind of thing, and that's who you want to aspire to be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask this question just based off of my experience at last year's opera school, which is when I met David.
Right.
Did you ever fall out of love with music?
No.
Never?
No.
Wow.
Why?
Because I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
After, I think last year, so I would have finished my third year. Yeah, so after my third year of music, I was like, I felt that I was just kind of doing it because the path has just been laid out for me so graciously by all my teachers.
Right.
And so I didn't really have any motivation to kind of do it by myself. It was just all external. Which, of course, if you have a path laid out for you, you have to be very grateful for that.
Right, yeah.
But I was just like, why? I'm just not necessarily happy doing this. I don't find anything cool. I'm just stressed out all the time.
I'm stressed out all the time. Don't get me wrong. But
and also, I'm not as naturally inclined to academia as you are. So the whole writing thing, not for me.
Yeah, fair.
And so when I got to opera school, I spent time with Simon O'Neill, famous New Zealand tenor.
Name drop.
Yes, absolutely. Shout out Simon. And then
come on the pod, Simon.
people like David, and when you spend time with people like that, you end up rekindling the kind of, because Simon's one of those people that has this childlike wonder about music.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
And he's been in the industry for ages.
Yes.
And he's
he never loses it,
he's absolutely made it.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And he's still, when we were talking, he was just, oh, isn't this just so cool? Look at how he goes through this phrase and all this thing. And you're like, wow, that is cool.
Yeah.
That's right. This is why I wanted to do this thing. And I think for a lot of people, through the kind of stress of doing gigs and learning music, it just becomes such a turnover. And
yeah, I mean, okay, so I see what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. The life is stressful.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's, well, we'll talk more about that later. But the actual process of doing the gigs just makes it so worth it.
Yeah.
I hope I never do lose that love of music. For me, this is just the only thing that I'm a very lazy person. I don't like working, I really don't. And so, but I never have trouble getting out of bed in the morning if I'm going to go off and do music somewhere, because I love every second of it, especially when it's a kind of, sometimes I'll get a bit stressed when I'm doing something that I don't feel is entirely what my skill set is. But if it's something where I feel entirely comfortable and at home, I know I will love every second of it. And so no, it doesn't disturb me at all. Like in the repetitorian side of things, there are so many things that I love about it. really. So many things that I love about it. You want to know how great it is? Okay, I'll tell you how great it is. Okay, so here are the few things about repetitive touring. I mean, number one, the singers. You don't have to be one of the singers. Being a singer, now that's very stressful. Good luck to you. Very, very stressful, because you're at the mercy of your voice box here, and it's a very fickle thing. The voice box. Sometimes it's working great, sometimes it's not, and sometimes there's fuck all you can do about it when it's not working.
Everything in your life affects the voice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the difficult thing. If you ate the wrong thing, if you days
even if you're just feeling sad one day.
Yeah. Having said that, it seems not to affect some people. Like, I know people who have seen Simon just yak down a curry and then walk on stage 5 minutes later.
It's just the whole, that dairy myth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We all get told you can't eat dairy before you sing. It is a bit of a myth. So that's very stressful. But when you're around amazing singers, goodness me, it's amazing. Like last year, I had one of the most amazing things I did last year was I worked on this new opera called Star Navigator, Ihitayavia, which was one of New Zealand Opera's productions last year. And I was the sole repetitor on the production. I was the only pianist on the production. The opera was written by Tim Finn, who some of you may have heard of. At the time, coming from England, I didn't know as much about him as most people, because that's, he's very much part of New Zealand culture. But I quickly got to know about him, and I quickly got to know, wow, this is an awesome guy. And he was there throughout all of the rehearsal process, and I got to know him quite well. He was a great guy as well. So that's one part of things. You get to sit there next to Tim, and also Tim played things as part of the show. So Tim and I got this thing where I would be playing the orchestral bit, and I'm playing orchestral, and then we know it's getting up to a Tim bit, so Tim will come and slide onto the stool next to me, and then I'll slide off the stool, and Tim will slide onto the stool, and without stopping, the music will go from Tim to me playing, and then do the same in reverse when it comes off again. So that was pretty cool. He's a wonderful guy. But then also the singers on the production, amazing singers. Amitai Patti of Sole Mio fame, if any of you
I'm sure a lot of the people will know.
Absolutely, yes. Amazing, incredible singer. Our friend Natasha Wilson as well, a wonderful singer. She's sort of my generation at university, more than your generation, but absolutely wonderful singer. I believe she's currently somewhere in Germany doing amazing things. And a guy called Paul Whelan as well, who is... I think he at one point, Paul won the Cardiff Singer of the World Leader Prize at one point, which I didn't know. Amazing.
I don't think I've ever met him,
You've never met Paul?
No.
Oh, Paul's a great guy and a wonderful singer. And those were essentially the three singers who made the opera. There was a narrator and a child actor as well. But and also the conductor was a man named Uwe Grodd. Do you know Uwe very well?
I know of him, but I've never met him
Another
before.
Wonderful guy, a German guy, very German guy. Hello, Ben. It's great to see you today. How are you? I'm good, Uwe. How are you? Oh, so great. Yeah, so great to see you. Yeah. Wonderful guy. Very, very, very wonderful guy. And so Star Navigator was 2 weeks locked in a room with those people. I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
I'm just in heaven, It's an amazing time working with singers of that caliber, a New Zealand music legend there, just writing the music as you speak, and going about it, and working in the company of all these people. And yeah, it's quite a pressurized environment, because we had to put together a whole opera in 2 weeks. Not easy. But I love that. And I just love being in the room with those people. And also, it being a new opera, you never know what you're going to expect. Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit. You're just not, you're not sure what you're going to get,
Absolutely.
Schrodinger's opera. You don't know if it's dead or alive until you open the box. But as it happened, we got into the room working on this opera, like, wow, this is great stuff. This Tim Fink guy knows how to write a song, huh?
Yeah.
It was really amazing stuff. It got to this, there's this... At the end, my favorite part was at the end, where the whole opera is the story of Tupaya, the Tahitian navigator who traveled with Captain Cook. And it comes to the end, and there's this beautiful song at the very end called... what is it called? I can't remember what it's called, but I think it's called something like Strange Stars. And it's just this beautiful melody that only Tim Finn could write, rising out of nothing. And it builds to this enormous climax with the music. And it's just gorgeous stuff, absolutely gorgeous stuff. So I was in heaven for 2 weeks, just playing for them. And additionally, also, there's something, and I don't know if other pianists feel this as well, there's something kinesthetically, I don't know if that's the right word, there's something kinesthetically very pleasing and pleasant and almost therapeutic about just the feeling of playing the piano. To play the piano, to press down the keys, it just feels good.
I had the same thing with singing as well.
Really?
When I first started singing, it wasn't necessarily like the sound, because obviously you don't hear what's outside. People just kind of tell you it sounds good. You're like, yep, sweet.
Yeah.
But the feeling of singing when it's right, it's for me, it's great.
Yeah.
When
it's right,
amazing. Yeah.
The when it's right part didn't work out enough for me for it to always be that. But
well, that's a lot of the reason why I fell out of love is such a big
Yeah.
big term that I
Yeah.
used, but it just wasn't working. A lot of stuff wasn't working for me, and a lot of it was growing and understanding. And then when I jumped into opera school, I was like, I'm not meant to be here.
Yeah.
Because, we have people like, I keep name dropping all these amazing singers. Emmanuel,
Yeah.
he's a studio artist with
He is
the
this
opera
year,
company, but he performed with you guys when you were
Yep.
studio artist.
Yep.
Phenomenal tenor.
Oh, yes. And the nicest guy as well.
The nicest dude ever.
Yeah.
And then, people like Sam, Scott,
Yep.
all these amazing singers. And I'm just like, wow, I can't even sing an F sharp. Like, it's just not, it's physically not in my voice. Like, why am I here? But then, like you said, you have that.
Having said that, and people probably don't know the amount of amazing singers who went through enormous vocal crises when they were young, amazing. Like we mentioned Simon. Simon, when he was younger, and this is quite famous now because he talks about it a lot, was a baritone. He sang as a baritone, and he was on stage. He went to the New Zealand Opera School, and he was on stage singing as baritone. And the vocal director or something went, "Simon, go off stage. You are not baritone. You are now tenore."
And he walked off the stage in tears.
He did, yes.
Yeah.
And it took several years for that tenore voice to actually work. He talks about he was stressing his voice too much, his vocal cords having hemorrhaging problems and stuff like that. And now you listen to the guy and it seems like he just opens his mouth and it just comes out.
Yeah.
And how does it work? I don't know, but it just works. And even others like Jonas Kaufmann is exactly the same. Kaufmann had enormous vocal difficulties when he was young in Germany, and then he meets one teacher. And just in an instant, suddenly it fixes, and there he goes. So much singing is such a tricky thing like that,
It's hard, and if you go through, like I've just said this before, going through anything emotional in your life, and I was talking to Pene and Amina about this as well. If you go through
Pene Pate of Sole Mio.
Just name dropping everyone today.
And Amitai Pate, who is currently the prima donna of the Paris Opera House. Anyway, keep going.
When you go through these things, and they will physically affect the instrument, which won't happen if you play the piano. Like the piano will still play.
Yeah.
Your fingers will still work even if you're crying to a certain extent. You know what I mean?
Sometimes they work better.
Yeah. It just won't happen if you're a singer. So all of these things you have to keep into account. And
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard. But
But there are also things about singing that are also very, very easy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, so but no, I love it so much. And I mean, it's the same even in like music directing. Love it, absolutely love it so much. Like I last year I did a lot of music directing last year. Last year I music directed Auckland Grammar and Epsom Girls production, which was Spamalot.
That's
the Monty Python musical, based on the Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's a very, very funny piece. And it was quite a strenuous rehearsal period because we had our rehearsal period shortened because at the start of it was a COVID period. And so we couldn't rehearse for a little while. So we had to cram everything into a much shorter amount of time. But it was one of my first times pulling together a full band and rehearsing them from the ground up into the show. And it was a good band. But we got into the first rehearsal and, they're school kids. So, it's tough. You get in there and you start playing and they sound a bit ropey, and you're wondering, whoa, how is this going to go? But then you just rehearse, you keep going more and more, and you start to develop that relationship with them, but it's a musical relationship with them. You start to understand each other. You start to understand how things fit together. And then when you get to the shows, there is no feeling like I love being on stage for a show. That's a great feeling. But there is no feeling like being in the pit for a show. You feel the vibrant electricity of performing in the show without having to have the lights on you the whole night.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful place. And being the music director, so for those who don't know, when you're a music director in musical theatre, it's a bit different to being an operatic conductor. Sometimes music theatre directors do conduct in the pit. I was not conducting. It's a modern show. And so I was playing the keyboard one part at the same time as directing the singers. And you do that in a lot of different ways. Sometimes it means playing with one hand and conducting with another hand. Sometimes it means just nodding your head a lot as things go along. Sometimes you take breaks to conduct. Sometimes you have to just give big cues. And sometimes you just have to follow whatever the fuck the singers decide to do on stage. And you have to somehow pull the band together with that. And it's a challenging thing to do, especially in Spamalot was... Oh, I have to explain some musical stuff. Spamalot was what we call a very heavily patched show. So often the music theatre orchestrations are written with the keyboards to be what we call patched, when there are different patches, which are different sounds for the keyboard. So a keyboard might at one point sound like an organ, and then you press a button and suddenly it's on the keyboard patch, and then you press a button, and suddenly it's on the strings patch, and then suddenly on the oboes patch, and so on. And it was very, very heavily patched, so you're having to change patches like several times a page. And so you're having to do all of that, and also direct the singers, and also play, and also direct the band at the same time. It's quite a demanding thing to do, but God, is it fun. It's so fun because it all comes together, and when it all works, and it worked very well. It was a very good show. Man, it's fun.
That is one of the best feelings about what we do and doing shows. When the puzzle fits together, it just works. And we've been through plenty of things. We haven't done too many shows together.
We're about to do a few though, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're about. Should we plug some things? We could plug some things, couldn't we?
Sure.
Yeah. So we've got Opera in the Parks coming up.
Yes,
together,
Opera in the Park. That'll be very, very exciting.
Yeah. Well, do you want to tell them when it is?
29th of January.
Yep.
I don't know where it is though.
Where is it? Yeah, it's Hagley Park. Is that the name?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be me, James Harrison, who's a baritone. Taylor Alexander.
Taylor's singing, yes.
Who's a soprano and has is it the Taylor Alexander Foundation?
The TaylorMade Foundation.
The TaylorMade Foundation.
Yeah.
And she supports a lot of young singers, and she's a young person herself. She's only 21.
Yeah. Amazing person, yeah.
Katrine Johnson is singing as well. Do you know? There's one other person that's singing.
There's one other person, and I don't know her. She's Mark keeps telling me about her, and I clearly need to know her, but I can't remember her name. And I'll feel bad now if we don't mention her name, but somebody. I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
But yes, well, she'll be there as well, and you'll look out for her. And yeah, and I'll be playing, and it'll be a really fun evening. So Opera in the Parks happens every year. You just gather in a park, and you listen to us sing some opera. And it's a mix of your typical operatic repertoire and also some lighter fare. We'll do some music theatre, some songs that people know and stuff like that. It'll be a grand old day out. And also we're about to embark on a very exciting project, aren't we? Called
you're talking about new operas.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
We're doing the Unruly Tourists.
We are, yes.
And that will be a very exciting...
It will.
Very exciting time. There's gotten some
media attention, hasn't it? Yes.
A lot of media attention, and I think it's some people have a lot of negative things to say about it. Some people like the fact that we're doing something completely new.
You know what I find interesting about that?
Go.
Because I don't want to say anything about the quality of the work itself.
Yeah.
Apart from anything we don't know because we haven't seen the new version.
Yep.
But you will find out what the work is. But what I want to say is all these people who were saying either this show is clearly great or this show is clearly shit, none of them had seen it. None of them had seen any material from this show and were already willing to pass judgment on what the show was. Whereas the people who actually knew what the show was like was about 12 of us who had participated in the workshop. And we're just sitting back here by ourselves not saying shit.
We're like, thank you for the paid opportunity, New Zealand Opera.
But I felt an obligation not to say anything.
Absolutely.
Because, it's a developing work.
Yeah.
And the process of developing a work is a difficult one. And, you want to support that process as much as you can, especially because this is a work that's got a lot of potential. So I find that interesting that in all of its publicity was coming from people who really didn't have anything informed to say about it. But I mean, any publicity is good publicity. I think
that's exactly my thing. I think it's going to be
I think
it's going to be a lot more popular than people think. And look, if this is the production that makes people that have never listened to opera come and watch a more traditional opera, then all power to it.
Absolutely.
And I'm just... Honestly, I am super happy to be a part of it, and I think the cast that we have is going to be super fun.
Yeah, it's a good cast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the cast we have. I think we can say.
Are you repetitoring?
I am. Yes. So
it has been announced.
Yeah. So I'm the repetiteur for the show, and I'll be playing. I believe I'll be playing in the orchestra as well on the nights. But we have Jennifer Ward Leland in the cast, who many of you may have heard of. We have Byron Cole, who you will know from every advertisement that ever appears on New Zealand television ever, in the cast, and a bunch of young operatic up and comers as well, such as Sid. Are in the cast as well, and it should be a really great time.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Joel Amosa is in it as well.
Joel's in it as well.
Who won the last Lexus?
Yeah, he won the last Lexus Song Quest. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
It'll be a great time, and going forward, we have all the opera chorus stuff.
We do, yes.
Which will be fun. I don't know who's singing the leads of that, but
I think I might, but I'm not sure that I should say.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you know I saw. I saw the. I'm also about to go and play at the New Zealand Opera School that Sid's about to attend, and because I'm a staff member this year, pianist and coach, I was on the letter that they send out to students with a little bio next to me, and it called me part of the artistic team at New Zealand Opera.
Weird.
And I thought, really?
You're grown up now.
Yeah. Oh, it's news to me. Okay, all right. No, I kind of like that, part of the artistic team at New Zealand. Okay, fine, I'll take that. Yeah. It's been nice. I've developed a really good relationship with New Zealand Opera over the past year and a half. I said developing a really good relationship.
So professional.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's another thing that nobody really tells you, but you have to work out. A lot of this business is about the relationships that you make.
100%.
Yeah, and about knowing the right people. And because the simple fact is, if nobody knows who you are, well, nobody's going to hire you because nobody's heard of you. It's nothing reflective of you. It's just, people
You
don't know
definitely have
who
to
you
put
are.
yourself out there. And
Yeah.
when I was, in first year, second year, third year, I made it a conscious decision to make sure I go out to things and, try my best to meet people, or, even things like showing up absurdly early to a concert puts you in a really good, really good eyes for people that direct things, whether that be chorally or stuff for opera. And if people trust you, they'll ask you to do more stuff, and it kind of snowballs from there.
That's how this business works. You work for one person, you do a good job for them, somebody sees you doing a good job for them, they ask you to do another thing, and so on, and so on, and so on, until eventually you wind up somewhere else.
And, we've had people tell us this. It's not always about the quality of the music that you produce. It's about the trustworthiness. Like, if you're a kind of average singer...
But also about when it's something like Unruly Tourists or something like, Star Navigator, where you have to be in a room with one person for weeks at a time. It's, do I want to spend several weeks in a room with this person? And if the answer is no matter how great you are, you're not getting hired, which is the unfortunate fact, unless you are like obscenely good at the thing that you do.
But I think that's the difference between, being a professional and like taking some things more personally. If you don't like the person, that's all good. Not everyone's going to like everyone.
I know people who are very good musicians who don't get hired simply because people don't want to.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of that is if, they have a tiff with somebody else on stage or in the rehearsal room. That's all good. But you have to leave that to a certain extent at the door.
Yeah.
And
totally. Once you're in a gig with somebody, God, I hate people who make gigs personal. I mean, at the end of the day, we do have to realize, for as much as I talk about, the fulfillment of it and the saying something about it, it is also a job. This is our job, and you do have to be professional about it.
I think that's a really hard thing for people going into university and making it their thing.
Yeah.
Because when we were in high school, this was extracurricular for us.
Yes.
And now it's at university, it is our curriculum, and now it's our job.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, their accounting job or their, whatever, the law, engineering.
Oh, sure. And I know I've made mistakes in this regard.
Oh, 100%. I think everyone has, and that's how you learn.
Yeah, you have been. You totally have.
Dude, no, I have 100%.
Yeah, we all make mistakes.
Because music's such a personal thing to us, and by nature we get emotionally invested.
I don't know if you've noticed. I don't know if you've observed this. I think I've become a lot more. I think I've become nicer to be around in the past few years.
That's what I've heard. I think I got you in the nice years.
Yeah, I think I used to have a bit of an attitude problem, especially as regards musical stuff, and it may have, and I'm pretty sure actually, it meant that I didn't get as much work as I thought I should have, which compounded the attitude problem in a way. But you do have to be the sort of person that people like being around.
Did you think what do you think has mellowed you out? Was there a conscious decision to...
I think I've just gotten older, honestly.
Yeah.
I think it just changes you in that sort of way. I mean, when you're young, you're very hot-headed about everything, and you want the world to come to you, and all that stuff. And you just learn to. I also did a year of therapy. That may have helped. But also, I recommend that, by the way. Go to therapy if you haven't. You never know when you might need it. I think I don't know. I think I've just chilled out a bit. I've learned to stop trying so hard. I think actually what really changed it was I went to Christchurch because this is a non-singing thing. A non-playing thing that I did actually. I was in the cast of a musical in Christchurch. It was a proper professional musical, and there's not a lot of professional musicals that actually happen in New Zealand. So it was an opportunity I was very grateful to be a part of. It was a theatre called the Court Theatre in Christchurch, And so I was down there, and I was part of the cast, and I was around actors all the time, being used to being around singers. And I found actors, well, quite extroverted personalities. But I was also going through a bit of a mental health crisis at the time. And so I was quite quiet and more reserved than I would usually be. And I made the astonishing discovery that people were starting to like me a bit more than I was used to. I was like, what, really? Yeah, oh. I thought I had to be like loud and stuff and there, for people to like me. And then I was just sort of sitting in a corner playing video games, and people are like, "Wow, what a cool guy!" And so
I don't know. It's just such a weird one.
Yeah.
And there's so many, and like I said, it's such an emotional business, just by its nature.
Yeah.
And so we do get emotional about it. And when you realize, and I had to realize this as well, that other people care about it as much as you do. But their way of caring is just different.
Mm-hmm.
That changes your perspective on it a little bit. And also, pick your battles.
No, that is true.
Definitely pick your battles. And I think as you kind of get into a more professional space where you start to get paid for things.
That does help, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, not only just getting paid for stuff, but also, these things snowball, and your reputation as well snowballs as well.
I mean, especially at our time of life, most jobs or most professions scale on a curve like this, or you start out making very, very minimal increases in salary, and then it takes off much later, but when it takes off, what does it take off? But in music, it's a bit more like this. It can accelerate quite fast at the start. So for you and I, for people our age, I think we make more than the normal person our age.
100%.
I know at least I do, yeah. Because of the way that things scale. Now, with that being said, there's more of a ceiling for us, and for us to get to the next level of musical earnings, well, we have to get to a different professional level, and that's a difficult thing. But for now, that's nice, and it can help with the musical thing. Having said that, this is a profession, and you've probably seen this, in which it's very easy to get bitter, because if operatic singing gigs were as plentiful as retail jobs, then we'd all be rich as Croesus. But unfortunately, it doesn't work in that way. You're working with the unfortunate reality that this is an industry in which there aren't a whole lot of jobs.
No.
There just aren't, especially in New Zealand. Like we mentioned New Zealand Opera. I work a lot for New Zealand Opera, and I love New Zealand Opera. They're great employers to me, and I've always had a great time with them. They are the only opera company nationally in New Zealand. They're the only one. And they do, well, this year, what are they doing? They're doing one main stage opera, which is Macbeth, later in the year. I haven't leaked that, have I? No, that is announced, yes. Macbeth later in the year. And then they're doing a work at the Auckland Festival, which is the Unruly Tourists. And they're also doing a performance of an opera on the harbour, which is Carousel. And then they're doing some smaller productions around some regional cities in New Zealand. And that's it. That's all they're doing. Now, if you went to Germany, let's say, and an opera company would be doing 10 main stage productions a year. That's what they would be doing. We can't do that here because we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the audience.
We don't have the money.
Yeah, we don't have the money. Yeah, we just can't do that. So things are necessarily smaller. And then there are some other regional opera companies. So Wellington Opera started up recently, and they're doing great work down there. They're going to do, what are they doing this year? They're doing La Traviata this year, and it's going to be a great production there. They've announced the cast, haven't they? That's Emma Pearson and
yes,
Ollie Sewell.
Yeah.
I saw fear come into your eyes when you thought I'd accidentally leaked something.
Yeah, no. I was like, was that? No, I was. I saw the Instagram.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so they're doing great stuff there. And we also have up here Auckland Opera Studio with the wonderful Frances Wilson, who does her own stuff up here as well. But other than that, that's kind of about it if you want to be an operatic performer around here. And, so in a sense, I'm very aware that I've gotten lucky, that I've gotten in with some of the only people who are doing this.
They make it such a big point at, I can't speak for other universities because I've never been to them,
yeah.
But at Auckland University, our teacher, Te Oti Rakana, Dr. Te Oti Rakana, big shout out, to be fluid in what we do. We have instead of an RA competition at the university, we have a music theatre competition.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot more jobs as an actor in music theatre, I would say, than necessarily at New Zealand Opera.
It's debatable, actually, but yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Go.
The music theatre industry in New Zealand is weird.
Ah, yeah.
You want to know about this?
Okay,
it's
go.
A subject
Go.
It's a subject of some controversy. Because like I just said, when I mentioned that the court is one of the only places that is fully professional, productions. There's this weird thing, and it's slightly controversial, called the pro-am model to musical theatre, which happens a lot in New Zealand, where amateur music theatre companies around, like, Auckland Music Theatre or whatever, they put on these productions, and they do perfectly nice amateur productions, very nice, and they have a vibrant musical theatre community. I love the music theatre community to bits. And eventually these productions got to a certain stage where they're like, we want to take this to the big theatres. So they would take these productions and they would hire out the Civic to do these productions. Okay, fine, great. You want to hire the Civic? Good for you. And then it got to the stage where public, because it's at the Civic, they start going to these productions massively. And then the people running these productions start to go, okay, if we're going to put these productions in the Civic, we need to guarantee a certain quality. Well, we can't necessarily do that just from the music theatre community. So we'll hire in a couple of people to do the big roles to make sure they got that quality, and then the rest of the cast will be amateurs. Okay, so we've gotten here quite organically, and at every step of the way, it seems like a good thing to do. But what we've got here then is a show that is at the Civic. It's a big show that a few people are being paid at, and that the New Zealand public's paying good money to see, where the cast aren't being paid. And then that starts to be problematic, right? Because you've got all these people, and they're doing it for the love. And great, good for them. You want to do it for the love, you do it for the love. But it creates a weird situation where it's very hard to develop a professional industry in this when you already have a pro-am industry where you can put on these shows, but you don't have to pay the actors.
Yeah.
And this creates a very difficult thing. So the Court in Christchurch does fully professional productions, which is wonderful. And recently, Amici Productions has become G&T Productions, who are starting to move more into more fully professional productions in Auckland. And there's also the Auckland Theatre Company, but they're sort of off and on with when they do professional productions. And that's essentially it for musical theatre in New Zealand. There's also touring stuff. There's touring stuff as well, I should say that. There is touring stuff, but those tend to form on a project-by-project basis. And other than that, that's it. And so it's very hard to compete as an actor in these industries when there are people who are willing to do it for free. And here's the thing. Because there's not a lot of these fully professional productions, the New Zealand public don't know the difference. Like when the New Zealand public goes... Like, for instance, I was in a production of Les Miserables a few years ago, for which I wasn't paid. But I didn't mind doing it because I knew, and have subsequently proved to be the case, that I would get subsequent work from being there. And it's actually proved to be the case. You impress enough by being there for free that people then hire you later. It's not great that you have to do the thing for free to get the work later on, but you do what you got to do. But I was... there were a few people of the leads who were paid, and, they're amazing performers. But then the rest of us in the cast, and it was a cast of like 50 or something like that, weren't paid. And if you asked the public who came to that show whether we were paid, I think they would have assumed that we were, because we were at the Civic and we were putting on this great big show. And I'll be honest, it was a really good show. Mm-hmm. We did really, really well.
I went to watch. It was amazing.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, it's a very weird model, and it's been a subject of some controversy, and that's why it's starting to move away from that, because we're starting to see people become uncomfortable with operating fully in that way. And it came about from the best of intentions, but it's a tricky thing to navigate, especially when the public doesn't really, and even when they do know that what they're watching is an amateur production. Like, I've had people come, because I've done a bit of regional amateur theatre productions. I've seen people in the foyer afterwards and talking about these shows and go, oh, that was just as good as the professional shows. I saw it in the West End and it wasn't as good as that. I'm sorry, I don't believe you. No.
No.
I'm going to guarantee, absolutely guarantee.
Well, there's a lot of recency bias when it comes to...
yeah. I'm going to, for as much as I love the Harlequin Theatre, I'm going to guarantee to you that their production of Jesus Christ Superstar was not as good as the West End one. I'm going to guarantee that to you. Okay, so the public just doesn't know. So it's very hard to make that difference here. By contrast, there is not a lot of amateur operatic stuff that happens. In fact, there isn't any. Because it's a lot harder to do. So that guarantees that when you go into the operatic line of work, you're not necessarily having to enter that profession in that kind of way. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to navigate. And I don't. Some people are very up in arms about the pro model. I'm not as up in arms about it as other people, because if people want to do it for the love, and they're just doing it for the love, and they're happy to not get paid. Well, who am I to tell them that they should be unhappy about it? I'm not necessarily. I don't need to do that. But I see why it can make people uncomfortable. So it's an interesting.
Yeah,
thing.
When you do start getting paid for things, there's an expectation.
Yeah.
And when you don't get, I think it's hard, especially when you're older. For somebody young like one of our friends was in the production as well, and she's one of the leads.
Yeah.
And she was younger, so she was super professional. She was phenomenal in the show.
Yeah.
But when you get a little bit older and more things rely on what's in your wallet,
Yes.
the expectation of what you deliver, if you need to get paid, is a lot higher.
Mm.
And if you don't get paid for the thing, you're not going to put as much time into it as your job.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that is interesting as well.
I mean, I remember after Les Mis, I played for the rehearsals for Mary Poppins, which was the next Amici show. And because I was playing, they paid me to come and play for the rehearsals. And I remember sitting down, playing for the first rehearsal, and I thought, at the end of that, just one afternoon of working, I thought, wow, I made more today than I made for all of Les Mis.
Yeah.
Which was an interesting thought. But, that's the way the cookie crumbles around here. That's the other thing you'll learn. New Zealand is weird in terms of the musical industry. It's very weird. It doesn't work like other places. And so you've got to just work the industry in the way that the industry demands,
Yeah.
Got to do what you got to do.
I guess for me, I don't really, I do think about the money.
Yes.
I think it's hard
Yeah.
to not, especially
Yeah.
when you, after so long of doing either free work or...
I wanted to ask you this,
Yes.
though, because I heard your first podcast with your financially minded friend,
Yes.
and I learned a lot about Bitcoin and Ethereum,
Yes.
and Doge to the moon and all that good stuff.
Shout out Elon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here's what I was wondering though the whole way through. Your friend sounded like he's very motivated by money.
Yeah.
And good for him. Who am I to say he's wrong? I'm just not. I'm really not. If I were, I sure as fuck wouldn't have become a musician. So it's like, does the financial side of things really motivate you? Like, do you care?
No, because, yes, I do now, because the amount of stuff I need to do with money has become a little bit more. I need to look at going overseas.
But here's the thing, for me...
The time that I put... You have to... I have to look at it through the lens of time and not money.
Right.
Because if you go into our industry looking particularly at how you're going to get paid, you're not going to get hired because people won't like you.
Yeah.
Because all you're going to be is, I'm not getting paid enough for this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you get to the kind of our stage where we have to look at going overseas,
Yeah.
and of course the money matters. It can't not.
True.
So if you're not going to get paid for a gig, but during that time you were able to work at your part-time job where you'll be earning X amount of money, then you should probably do the job.
But here's my thing. For me, there is such a thing as enough money. If I have enough money to buy the things that I want to buy, I have enough money, and I simply do not care about getting any more money.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
And I guess it's on a person-to-person basis. And my I want to say this is my goal, right? If I was to have a big goal in life, this would be it.
Yeah.
Where I would have enough money to not worry about anything, and I can pay all my bills and buy whatever I like.
Yeah.
And I could just do whatever singing thing that I wanted to do and not worry about getting paid about it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely. I think that's for a lot of people. That's the dream. You don't want to worry about money when you're doing this.
Yeah, totally.
Because there's so much other beautiful things in our business that we want to focus on.
Unfortunately, if anybody's thinking about coming into this for the money, don't.
No, but also one thing
you may well end up earning a lot of money, but it'll take a long time.
My friend James, who was on the first podcast, we talked about this after the podcast, which we probably should have. I really wanted to say during. It was told to me by a friend of mine that your career shouldn't necessarily dictate how you earn your wealth. It should be your things that you invest in and how smart you are with your money. And we've kind of talked about that in our group chat a little bit. I don't want to go too into it.
Right.
But I think that's important. You can't just live off of your kind of gig money and things like that. If you invest your money in a smart way, then it will just kind of
Why can't you just
keep
live
rolling.
off your gig money?
You can if you like. I don't want to.
I do.
Yeah, you can do that. But I'm saying,
true.
if you don't want to... You also said that you don't care if you get paid. You just do it for the love of music, right? So that's my goal as well.
So long as I have enough money, I'm happy. I look at people...
So there's a way you can do that when you're older and you have enough kind of capital to invest in this. I'm not a financial advisor by any means, everyone. So if you're, just relax.
But I mean, I think about I look at people, and I know people who earn $100,000, $200,000 a year, And I look at them and I just think, how do you spend that much money in a year? I can't conceive of how you could physically need that much money. And even that I know isn't crazy amounts of money for what some people are earning, but still, I'm sitting here earning the amount that I do, and I'm very happy. And you've seen me; I make extravagant purchases when I want to make them. It's fine, but I don't see how it's possible to expend that much money. So I don't think about money that much.
And we're in a business where you don't have to. If you're in I think it's important to not, and I also think it's important too. Money is just it just is a reality.
Yeah. Now, having said that, I know that I don't care much about money is something that only people who have enough of it say. So I know that I'm fortunate in that regard. But it's just not what motivates me at all. Don't get me wrong; it's nice to have it. It's nice to see it there.
Don't get me wrong; it doesn't motivate me at all. I like having money, and I like having a lot of it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I'm at a lot of it kind of level yet.
But I don't know if I told you the story. I was with my girlfriend, and I was having dinner with her and her mother and her mother's partner, and they were talking about investments and whatever. I have no investments, I should say. Well, I don't know. I've invested pretty heavily in a delightful Lego collection, which I think maybe that'll be worth a bit of money, actually, in a bit, now that I think about it. But other than that, I have no investments. And they asked if I had any investments, and I said, no. And I said, should I? And they said, how much money do you have? And I said, I don't know. And I pulled out my phone, went to my banking app and said, there you go. That's the money that I have. And they went, Ben, what the fuck? Why is that just sitting in your savings account? And I went, I don't know. I just don't really think about it. It's just sort of there. It buys me things when I want it. And they're like,
my parents are like that. So I don't know if you've listened to the entire podcast.
I listened to the first episode.
I said that my parents are like that as well. They earn this type of money, and then it's in your bank account, and then that's your money, and then you have that, and that's perfect. That's great. Some people are more than happy, and my parents more than happy to do that. They don't want to diversify any portfolios. My dad's like, look, I just came from Fiji. I've won to paint houses. Pay me, I'm sweet. And look, like I said, my parents are more than happy. Great house that they've built. They've built our entire family off of their work. They haven't made any extravagant kind of investments, and for some people it works, and you don't necessarily have to do that.
What I have in the back of my mind as well is that my income streams are not steady.
No,
they come in fits and spurts, And also, you talk about going overseas. Yeah, may need to go overseas. Would like to go overseas sooner rather than later. And so I have in the back of my mind, I don't need this money now, but I can foresee a time not too far off where I may well need a lot of this money. 100%.
I think this is a big mistake that a lot of, again, all this stuff that we talked about after the first podcast we should have talked about on here. It's a big mistake that a lot of kind of young people make. They take all of their money from their savings, which I would call liquid money, because you can take it out whenever you like, and they put it all into investments, which it kind of takes a few years. It takes a while for it to kind of grow into what you would expect it, what you would want it to. And so for us, who need to go overseas and need liquid money because we need to pay rent when we go overseas, we have to pay, fees, audition fees, etc. If you put your money into investments, well,
exactly.
You literally don't have.
And that's the thing.
However,
they showed me. They showed me these calculators of these firms who will invest your money for you, and they just showed it to me, and they showed me, and it worked out to something like I can be making like $2,000 or $3,000 a year or something from these things by investing my money for 5 years or something. And I just went, it's just not worth it for me. $3,000 is not worth the security of knowing that money is there for me. So,
No, I see what you mean. And it's definitely, I think that's why a lot of people don't invest their money. Because the money's there. It's liquid. I see it, and that's the reason why. But I'm not a financial advisor to everyone. I know some of the people on the podcast told me
about... Doge to the moon, everybody. Doge to the moon. Buy now.
Ben is genuinely our group's version of Elon.
How? In what sense?
Because you just said Doge to the moon. No, I'm not a financial advisor by any means. I just kind of listen to things and read what I can read, and I'll make my decision based on that. But look, it's your money, man. Do what you want with it.
Yeah.
I think there are ways to definitely be smart with money.
Yeah.
And a lot of it doesn't necessarily have to be just putting it in the bank. because that's never going to be because if you just keep money in the bank, it loses value
Oh, I'm aware.
over time. But we're in a position in our particular careers. James is on a completely different thing.
Yeah.
His entire job revolves around money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For us, it revolves on something else, and because we're so, the word I like to use is infantile in our in our respective careers.
Yeah.
It means that we need liquid, and we don't necessarily have the same capacity to invest as other people.
I know some singers who certainly need liquid. Yes. So.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's different. But also, I'm in a situation where I've had to sort of rethink how I think about my income streams, because last year was a crazy year for me. Like, not just the emerging artists. Emerging artists. They used to be called emerging artists, and now they're called studio artists for some fucking reason that I don't understand. But okay. So that was one thing. But also, last year, my life just fucking exploded professionally. Because in my experience at least, professional development, career development scales like this. You progressively get more and more gigs each year. Hopefully, if you're good at your job and people keep asking you back. And that's what has been happening. But the amount at which it increases each year scales logarithmically. Okay, so that it's not only do you get more gigs each year, but the amount that it increases each year increases each year. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so last year was the year where the curve, I think, just hit that for me and started going very much upwards. And I remember seeing, when I was younger, I would look at musicians' diaries of musicians that I respected a lot, and I would see their diaries, and I would see every page, every day, full for all day, and I would just think, wow, what must that be like? And then in the middle of last year, I looked at my diary, and
this is what it's like.
Oh, it feels like this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I guess I'm there. And so that was a very different stage for me. I reached last year the stage where if I want to fill every minute of every day with work, I can, if I so choose, which is very dangerous, because I developed the mindset coming up that I should take everything that I can get,
Perhaps you're thinking, because you, as much as you say that you don't like work and you're a lazy person, you like rehearsing.
Yeah, for me, this isn't work.
Yeah. I think that's your...
Yeah.
I said that you love the...
It doesn't feel like work,
at least.
I mean, it is work. It is my job, but it doesn't feel like work.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's great.
Yeah, but it's a dangerous thing though, because if you fill every minute of every day with work, you inevitably end up neglecting other aspects of your life.
Have you ever had like a proper job?
No, never.
Really?
Every job I've ever had has been music. Every single job I've ever had is music. I've never worked a retail job. I've never done anything with that. I got a job playing in the kindergarten that I went to when I was a child, when I was like 14.
But that's still a music
or something
job.
like that. Yeah, exactly. that's a music
job.
job. Exactly. They've all been, every single one has been a music job. When I was in high school, Nigel, I mentioned before, gave me a job at his local music school, teaching ukulele and keyboard and singing.
So do you do much kind of... I think you did a little bit the last time I talked to you, because I wanted to get into a bit of teaching, but do you still do a lot of teaching now?
So this is the thing. So for the time that I was doing the doctorate, for the first 3 years, I had a stipend from the grant that Nancy gave me, which was $27,000 a year, which is the standard university stipend, which is, for somebody who's just come out of high school and is in university, an unimaginably wealthy salary. That's fine. I can live on that fine. I'm a student, and then as that was coming to an end, I became quite rapidly aware, oh shit, this gravy train's going to run out pretty soon. It's going to stop pretty fast. Huh?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I need to replace some revenue streams. So I took up a lot of teaching. I started teaching in 2 different schools. And that became like my steady income, because that's every week. You're doing something every week. You spend a day teaching every week. And you can make, it pays quite well. It pays, should I say how much that pays? I don't know.
It's up to you. It's your money.
Well, I mean, I don't want to say any specific schools, but if you're working in a good school as an itinerant music teacher, you're probably making like $70, $80 an hour, something like that, And if you can get you can get like a 6-hour day of teaching. Well, if you're getting $70 an hour, that's $420. And if you do 1 day in 2 schools, a day each in 2 schools, so you're only working 2 days a week, you can make $800 a week. And if you work like 39, 40 weeks of the year, then this is too much maths for me to try and work out. But that's like $30,000 a year, something like that. more than enough working 2 days a week. So that's a nice, regular, steady income, and it gives you time to do other things on the side. Having said that, recently, as my, gig work started to go to Doge to the moon, I started to realize that having to keep this slot every single week for these things, 2 days of a week, it really kind of limits you.
Yes.
Because you have to say to all your gig people, can't work Wednesdays, can't work Fridays. And when you're doing gigs, a lot of things rehearse during the day, and they can't accommodate that. And so I started to realize, man, I know this is like week-to-week reliable income, and that's good. I like that because I know that I won't run out of money, but it's limiting me elsewhere. So at the end of last year, I quit one of my schools. I still kept one because I am, by my nature, a fearful and timid person. But I've quit one, and I'm not playing for any school choirs anymore either. And so my every week commitments are now limited to most of a day of teaching in one school.
What you just explained is exactly the reason why I don't want to teach.
Why?
I wanted to get into it because obviously, the retail grind, now that I'm a little bit older and getting into the professional music scene a little bit more, my focus just wants to be on music.
Yeah.
However, like you said, it limits a lot of things you do outside of teaching. And I was very lucky, and I would say that you're very lucky that we had very committed teachers around us.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the reason why I'm doing music now. And if I can't be that for another student, I just don't think, because there are plenty of other people that are smarter than me and better at teaching and better at explaining certain concepts than I am, and I think it's just not for me. Even though it's like it's a music job.
That's fair.
It involves the same kind of things, and I guess.
I mean, I like teaching, but I don't love having a teaching job just because of the grind of it being every week.
Yeah.
And for it being this consistent thing. Not just because it limits the diary space, but also because you have to show up every single week to do the thing. I sound like such a fucking little bitch right now. Because this is most people's everyday life. But for me, that's something that's hard to do.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't also have to play for rehearsals that same night.
Yeah, true.
Or don't also have shows to
I was doing stuff like
music.
I was doing that during Les Mis, and I was teaching 7-hour days, and then going straight to the Civic and doing a 3.5-hour show in the evening. And that's as much as you love it, it starts to drag.
What do you do to decompress? Besides Animal Crossing. Or is it just Animal Crossing?
I don't know that I really do decompress, to be honest.
I think you should, man.
Yeah, I watch videos of people playing extremely hard Super Mario levels.
I guess that works.
Yeah, and I play extremely hard video games.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really decompress so much as compress. So,
no, I wouldn't say so. It's just it puts your mind into something else than what you do from your day to day, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, video games are a dangerous thing for me. I wasn't allowed a video game console when I was a child. So I would pick my friends by who had Mario Kart. It's only semi a joke. Seriously.
You're saying this because we're public. I know you're 100% serious.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I had this guy. I went to a tennis club, and there was this guy there, and I've always, for some reason, especially when I was younger, I would be friends with people that weren't typically popular, didn't typically have a lot of friends, because maybe it's this thing of liking different people from the ordinary people. I don't know. But anyway, this guy, he was a nice guy. I wasn't just his friend because he had Mario Kart. But I must be honest, it was a delightful perk of our friendship that he had Mario Kart at his house. And so we would go over to his house and we would play Mario Kart badly. And I must tell you, I had a wonderful time. And so now that I'm older and I could get a video game, you know that thing when you get older and you develop independence and you suddenly discover that if you want to eat an entire cake, you can just eat an entire cake anytime you want. And this is a difficult and dangerous thing to have. It's the same with video games, And so I do sometimes, because I mentioned before, I'm a very obsessive personality. So sometimes I do get too obsessed with things. But yeah, I like extremely hard video games, in particular platforming video games. I don't know why I think I get too bored if they're not incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And so, I recently played a game called Celeste, which is a beautiful game, and it is brutally difficult, and will have you tearing your hair out. I played Hollow Knight recently as well, and there's a similar thing, So, yeah, so to decompress, I mean, though, I don't know. What is decompressing? What do you mean by decompress?
Well, you say, like we just said before, that our industry, albeit we love it so much, does get stressful, and it's a very time consuming.
Yeah.
So for me, taking time away from that, even though I love it so much, and this is of course what I want to do with my life, is super important.
Maybe this is the difference. For me, the stress is between work.
Right.
Not during. So for me, the work is the decompression. And then between instances where I work is where I stress about, life and fitting everything in and where's the next gig coming from and so on. But while I'm doing it, like I said, it's not like I'm working.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
But, doing the same... How do I even... I don't know. For me, going out and doing something else just to just kind of let my professional... Because this is our job now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And... doing it all the time does take a toll on somebody's mental state, I guess. And so taking time away from that to play video games, I'm sure you could say that, it is quite nice to just relax and play a video game, no matter how hard it is. And you don't have to worry about playing the piano or... Because I love singing.
I think...
You know what I mean?
I think...
But also... To decompress, I have to go to jiu-jitsu and just let every, I have to let some kind of... I have to just let it out.
Maybe
you know
I
what mean?
would benefit from having some kind of outlet, but I'm just obsessed with music.
Yeah.
It is. I use the word obsessed advisedly. It is an obsession. I'm a very obsessive person, and so I'm utterly obsessed with this. And so when I'm doing it, I don't want to take a break and do anything. It's like everybody else jokes. Ben hates taking breaks because when everybody else is going off on a break, I'm the one saying, "Oh, why do we have to take a break? Because we've been working for 3 hours. Well, so what? Let's work for 3 more." And when I schedule my teaching, I purposefully schedule entire days without breaks.
Yeah.
Because I don't like breaks. Yeah. I don't like taking breaks because it completely breaks that headspace that I'm in. Like if I'm teaching, I'll go for several hours teaching. And then if somebody doesn't show up or if I take a break, I find it incredibly hard to go back to it then.
Oh, it just breaks you out of your cycle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But whereas I've got perfectly enough stamina and I love what I'm doing, I don't want to take a break. Just let me keep going. Like if I'm in a rehearsal and I'm playing for the rehearsal and somebody says, "Okay, Ben, take a break," I'll probably just keep playing the piano while everybody else takes a break,
Yes, and that's exactly what he does.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's quite annoying to some people sometimes, but
No, but I think that's really cool, and some people are exactly like you, and of course it seriously depends on the person and the personality.
Yeah.
Like I said, for me, sometimes I just need to get away.
Yeah.
And that's for everything, and that's why I kind of like having, and not necessarily from the music, because I love to sing, and like I said before, that's the way that I say, and I love the feeling, and also the sense of kind of working together. In saying that, though, I need to just do something outside of that, go to the gym, and just kind of get all of this energy out. I guess, like I said, it's different for everyone, and
yeah, true.
Yeah,
but I am quite aware that last year I did come fairly dangerously close to some form of burnout. I think simply because I was just working too hard. I looked at my schedule.
Do you think you were working too hard or too much? Or both?
Oh, too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, not too hard, actually. Yeah, you're right. Because I looked at my schedule. Somebody asked me, "Hey, are you free sometime to go to lunch?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, let me just check my diary." And I checked my diary and I realized...
They don't have time to eat today.
I do not have... I am working every single... There was a period where, there was Waitangi weekend at the start. That's the one at the start of the year, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then I worked literally every single day for 3 months or something like that. It was fucking ridiculous. And no matter how much you love what you're doing, that becomes unhealthy at a certain point.
100%.
Because apart from anything, your girlfriend goes, "Ben, I haven't seen you for months. Come on."
When you, and I've kind of had to think about this a lot lately, everyone's lives doesn't completely revolve around music. This is not the be-all, end-all.
Yeah.
As much as, everyone in our group loves music.
Yeah.
And I would say just as much as the next person. How we express that, of course, is differently, and, what we want to do with our careers is different for the most part. But we all love music in one way or another. And we're all committed to it, particularly the ones that are doing the opera thing.
Yeah.
But this is not the be all end all, and there are things outside of this that matter as well, like your relationships. And
here's the thing: for me, there are very few things outside of this that matter.
Oh yes, I agree.
Yeah.
But you have, I guess for me,
there's something wrong with me. there's something quite wrong with me, and I don't know what. But
I
like,
wouldn't say there's something wrong with you. You are, but I'll say quirky.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
For our audio listeners, you should have seen the hand gesture that accompanied that. I don't know quite what it was, but it was amazing. No, but seriously, like I don't know what it, but like I really. You would be amazed at the number of things in life that for most people are a part of their lives that I just do not give a shit about. Just let me get back to the music room. Let me get back to start making some music. Even talking to people. Like, get me wrong. I like socializing with people. But like, I remember when I was in high school, my mother got concerned that I was never bringing friends home. He said, "Why are you never bringing friends home?" And I'm like, "Because I'm with them all fucking day doing music and stuff. I don't care to bring them home." She like forcibly brought them to our house to have a movie night, and I had an awful time because I'd had enough of it, So like, I get everything
It's kind of
that I
cool
want
that
out
you
of life.
knew what you wanted, and that you kind of knew that was your personality, and you only cared about music. And if you wanted to be friends with people, it was kind of only music people, I guess.
But I'm aware that this is a problem because other people don't work like
it's
this.
not necessarily, mate, because when I was in high school, all I kind of did was just be in the music center. Just like kind of chill out there.
That's the common experience of a lot of music kids.
Yeah, and
I know that I was in Snell House. I never went to Snell House. I'm sure it was a lovely place. Never went there.
Yeah, and so but when I was in kind of my later years of university,
I thought you said your lady years.
that's another podcast, mate.
We don't talk about that.
And I talked to my teacher Lockie. I was like, for some reason, man, I just like feel like super like alone. Like maybe what I did in high school was wrong. Like just staying in the music center all the time. Like maybe that wasn't beneficial for me. It was like, well, you just got to lean into it.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't not like who you are. And if you feel like you get more benefit from being by yourself than being with a group of people, then that's just the way it is.
But it's not that I need to be by myself. It's just that the work that I do isn't necessarily very social. So when I get home after the end of the day, I often just don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. But I
Do you feel like that's also because a lot of people that you're around don't necessarily understand the what you do? And I know you go we're all good friends, and she does understand, but not to the capacity of kind of of you, I would say, because you're this genius pianist, and everyone kind of you also have to deal with everyone calling you a genius all the time, and you've just said at the beginning of the podcast that you do get sick of it.
Yes.
And not as committed as everyone in our group is, we will never have anyone calling us a genius all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just.
And do you ever feel? We should probably wrap this up soon. It's almost 4:00. But
what time did we start?
I think 2 something.
Fine.
I just. Do you ever feel like the pressure of that you have to live up to the genius thing, or do you just kind of do what you keep doing? And
no, I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something.
That would take more mental pressure than a lot of people.
That's something that fucks with your brain. When you spend forever with people telling you how, I don't know what, for want of a better word, extraordinary you are, then it's very difficult to accept being ordinary.
Yeah.
And it does put a lot of pressure on you, which isn't always nice. Sometimes you, I don't know. Sometimes you but because you end up setting standards for yourself of what you think is extraordinary and what you think you should be aiming for, and inevitably you may well fall short of those. But it's I wouldn't change it.
But I guess there's quite nice things about people calling you genius.
Well, not that necessarily,
No,
but
yeah,
just
I know
the life is. I don't know. I mean, I said this quite recently. I was with a friend of mine who is a poet. Yes, I have friends who are poets. That's what my life is like. And she asked me why I do what I do, and I ended up saying this is the only thing that I've ever really felt was worth doing. If I were doing anything else, I would come home at the end of every day and go, what's the point? Like you asked earlier about thinking about, is there a point what I'm doing, and what's the use of it. And it might seem, music is trivial. Music is a side effect. But for me, no, this is the only thing.
Well, I'm
that
sure
is
everyone's
worth doing.
had this, and it's such for me especially, seeing all of my like Indian family friends that have become engineers and stuff.
Yeah.
And just like super smart guys, and they're amazing at math, and they're gonna do amazing things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I just kind of tell all my family friends I sing songs. They kind of look at me like, yeah, nice. And
Yeah.
but we've had such a. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to have had experienced music. Like when you listen to Act 4 of La Boheme for the first time, and everyone's in tears.
Act 4 is the one that gets you, really?
Mimi.
No, Act 1.
Oh yeah, of course. But when you
Act 1 is the most perfect piece of musical drama ever written.
Yeah, exactly my point. So we all have experienced
Act 3 is
these
a bit
things,
boring,
and
but still.
we can talk about that another time. We've all had these things that have, you listen to something and that's just like, this is the best thing I've ever listened to, and a lot of people haven't experienced that, and so we know the importance of it. And then when you have somebody come in, and this could be anywhere, you could be playing at a retirement home, you know what I mean, and you do it for free and all this stuff, and then this old lady comes up to you and says, "Oh, that's just made my week." Like you said, for a lot of people it might seem trivial, but there's something about what we do.
It's the only thing that
changes.
It's the only thing that makes me
people.
But just for me, it's the only thing that makes me feel, like I'm actually alive.
Yeah.
Like I watched on Netflix. There's a new movie called Tick Tick Boom, which is a movie based on the life of a composer called Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, which was a great musical, one that I studied actually in my in my thesis. And the music is it's a musical, and the music is all written by Jonathan Larson. And I just, the thing switched on and it opens with a musical number. I watched it with my girlfriend on the couch. I'm in tears by the end of the first number. And I then spend the rest of the 2 hours just in tears the whole way through. And she's like, "You good, bro?" I'm like, yeah. This just, this gets me out. It's the same. I watched In the Heights in the movie theater. Just the 2 seconds of music starts and I'm just a sobbing mess. I can't cope with it. I watched the Mary Poppins sequel. Did you see that the Mary Poppins sequel that came out a few years ago with Emily Blunt, and just sobbing utterly throughout?
So when you watch things like that, it's we talk about La Boheme and all the things that you've watched, and there's definitely things in there that are just emotional and that just speak to you, just at that deeper level. Yeah. Or just kind of like, the trigger is such a big word. But just something that's so great about music, and for me, besides all these phenomenal operas, I watched. I think I might have talked about it on the group chat. Philip Glass's Satyagraha.
You liked Satyagraha?
Well, for me, it's different.
Oh, I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Did you watch the Met version?
Yes.
Right, with the big puppets.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, ooh. Nice. So I saw the big puppets and everything.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, one of these ones, right?
Yeah.
I kind of watched the thing and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. For me, my perspective was like, this is just cool seeing something Indian on like the Met stage.
Yeah.
And then it got to the final aria, and I think it's just the same. If I remember correctly, it's just the same melody over and over and over again.
I mean, it's Philip Glass. So, that's how he composes.
Yeah. And it's just so simple. But if a lot of people that are watching this probably won't even, have never seen an opera, but it's about Mahatma Gandhi and his kind of life, and at the final one talks about his influence on the people of the future, like Martin Luther King, who obviously massive influence in civil rights, and so as Gandhi is singing the aria, Martin Luther King is behind him, giving the famous "I Have a Dream" speech.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't know what happened, but it just like clicked, and I was just like in tears. And for me, that was the that was another kind of one of these light bulb moments of having just thinking to myself like, okay, look, there have been so many things that have happened, just in Indian history, and now you see it as an opera, and now you're the only person doing this thing, and that matters somewhat. So all of these things kind of snowball into having meaning for you. And I don't know if this makes much sense to anyone, but for me, all these thoughts just clicked, and I was just in tears.
I mean, there are so many of those for me.
Yeah.
Just about, I mean, can I name a few? I mean, I don't remember the first time I watched Sunday in the Park with George. Sunday in the Park with George is a musical by Stephen Sondheim. It's for me, it's the greatest piece of art that's ever been written. But I'm biased. But anyway, it's about a painter named Georges Seurat, and he paints to the exclusion of all other things in his life. He has a girlfriend called Dot, who constantly complains that she never sees George because he's constantly painting, and he's always in his own world painting because that's his world. And you spend all of the first act of the show seeing George painting and thinking, God, what an asshole George is, because he's constantly, alienating everybody else in his life. And then Act 1 ends with a song called Sunday, where suddenly the world just stops, and George commands all the people on the island, and it's in his mind, to the places where he wants them to be, and he constructs the painting that he wants to construct over the course of this song. And they sing a song about Sunday in the park, just strolling through the park. And it is the most heartbreakingly beautiful thing you will ever see. And people think that it's sad things get you emotionally. No, it's the most beautiful and perfect and happy and ecstatic thing. And it all comes together. And it's I have yet to, even in isolation, listen to the song without crying. Because it's just it just summarizes everything that you feel like people don't understand about what is going on in your head. Well, that's what's going on in the head. That construction of that perfectly beautiful thing, and it's rare that anybody is able to actually articulate that well enough for it to come across on a stage or something. But there it is, and every time I see that, it just speaks to something very primal. But also, okay, the Mary Poppins sequel. Okay, so there is a song in the Mary Poppins sequel. It is called Where the Lost Things Go. And in it, at the time that I watched it, I'd been thinking a lot about how I'd changed since I was young. When I was young, I used to be batshit crazy. I would do like crazy things without thinking about them. And just it was what I did. And I was fearless and stupid and naive. And I started to worry that I'd lost that sense of wonder or that sense of adventure within me. And then this song came along, called "Where the Lost Things Go," and it's a song that Mary Poppins sings to the children, and it sings about this magical place where all the things that you've lost go in your life. And they all go there, the place where the lost things go. And it's this magical place, and it does exist, and it exists within you. And she says, nothing's lost forever. It's merely out of place, And I'm just sitting there, and I'm just bawling my fucking eyes out in the Mary Poppins sequel. And my friends go, why what, this? Really? It's a little song for the kids. I'm like, no, it's something. It's like I said, something different.
And like your friend said, and you just asked me, did you like Satyagraha?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Like, it's not for everyone, but for me, and it just speaks to something so different.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing about what we do.
Yeah.
Is every little thing speaks to everyone a little bit differently. And yeah, you're so right. Some of the things that get you in the feels are not necessarily the saddest things that happen in the show.
Oh, one more?
Yeah, go.
The Beauty and the Beast live action remake. So, I was having a wonderful time in the Beauty and the Beast live action remake. I know a lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. I loved every second of it. And then along came Be Our Guest. And all through my life, I had seen the cartoon the cartoon version of Beauty and the Beast, and I'd be, I guess, big magical scene, all the furniture and the cutlery comes to life, and they do a dance for Belle, but it's animated in the movie. And I thought, imagine this. Imagine if this actually happened. Like, what would that look like if it was real and like everybody was actually dancing? And then along it comes in the movie, and clearly the director, who is Bill Condon, who is a musical theater aficionado, had been thinking the same thing as me, because he made the song like twice as long and twice as extravagant. And because we now have modern technology, everything looks real. Emma Watson is really there. There's a little golden Ewan McGregor who sounds Mexican for some reason, but we'll overlook that. And he's singing everything. Emma Thompson is a teapot. Ian McKellen is a watch, and it all came to life, and I just could not help myself. It was just the most magical thing, because I'd just been thinking what this would look like for so long, and there it was, and it looked like that. And everybody else was just going, these fucking Disney remakes, why don't they stop remaking these shit? The old ones were good. And I'm like, yes, they were good, but I want this.
There is something... I guess it's just some things that are like really overwhelming. Like I remember when we did Les Mis, and just we talked about this before as well. Like I'd never seen Les Mis before. I didn't know what it was until we started the thing. But when we were rehearsing, and when I saw the barricade come out for the first time, and you hear like dum bum bum bum, and I was just like, high school production.
Yeah.
I was like,
Kent's got a good budget. That was a good budget. But
I can't lie, it was elite. And when it came out, I was like, holy shit. And sometimes, not necessarily productions, but people's voices are like that as well. Like when you hear, and Simon said it himself, that his voice isn't necessarily a beautiful one, but when you hear it, you're like, holy shit.
Jesus Christ, it's loud.
Yeah.
It's so fucking loud.
It's just it's just one of those weird things. And
it's like a trumpet. It's incredible.
Yeah. I don't know, man. What we do is just so special, and so much of it is just not quantifiable. And as much as we would like to put it into words, you just can't. You just have to experience it. Yeah. And I personally am... might seem counterintuitive that I have a podcast, but but I'm for a lot of time terrible at putting things into words when it comes to this kind of thing. Because for me, it's just so emotional that I just don't really want to or know how to explain it. Yeah, you know what I mean.
But that's why you do the art. The art in theory speaks for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it speaks for itself.
Right.
Theoretically.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to have a chat about, or should we wrap it up there, man?
Subscribe to the Sidscussions podcast.
Got the plug from the man himself.
Available everywhere where podcasts are sold.
Not really. Just just YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music.
Just on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. Coming to other platforms soon.
I think a lot of people just use Spotify, but just...
I'm trying to sell this, man.
Hey, look, if there are any
multimedia
requests,
extravaganza going on.
If anyone uses Google Podcasts, let me know. I'll try my best. But no, man, look, really appreciate it. We had a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Cheers. We'll wrap this up.
Quite all right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.